welcome to the Independent Characters, episode 171. This is Carl.
This is Adon.
And this is Justin.
This episode, we are completing our Chaos Resurgent series with
Great series.
the final and best of the gods in my mind, Tzeentch. So we're going to talk all Tzeentch the whole episode after our hobby progress and games played section, which is actually a bit lengthy and productive this go around. So before we kind of kick it off, I've got a couple quick announcements. The first is there is an individual that in Fort Worth, Texas, that is setting up a Independent Characters listener meetup where they're just going to hang out. I don't know all the details around it, but he asked if I'd throw this information out there.
Super cool.
So that's going to be on May 19th. So if you are interested in attending that, you are in the Fort Worth, Texas area. Texas, as I have learned, is a very large state.
It's a very large state.
Even Austin is large. You want to reach out to lucas.w.lyon, that's Lyon, @gmail.com. I will put that address in the show notes so that you can email him and find out more details about it.
He wants to make you feel like you're part of his gaming group.
There you go. Maybe you will be part of his gaming group.
It's a Independent Characters listener meetup.
That's right.
We're not going to be there.
No.
But the week before that is June 9th. No, you said May.
May.
Okay, because next month, May 9th, is when
June
Warhammer Citadel...
That'd be June 9th.
What
Okay.
June 9th.
Yeah.
June 9th.
Listen,
It changed. It changed on you.
We don't edit. How many times do I have to tell you?
Got him, boss.
June 9th
is
Warhammer
when the
Cafe.
Warhammer Citadel
Right.
opens.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be there
Oh, nice.
on the 9th, flying out for the day.
Very cool. For the day.
for the
it's
day.
a 3.5 hour flight, my friend.
Yeah, flying out for the day. Going to drive out to the Citadel, say hi to some folks.
He's just
have
using
some high
them.
fives.
Them
I'm using those free flights.
free flights, man.
And
Yeah.
fly back that night.
Then and it'll only take you 14 hours to get back.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'll end up spending the night in the Dallas airport. But I switched some stuff around. And I'm going to be flying out
That's
to the
very
Citadel
cool.
opening. Yeah.
I take a lot of pictures, and
Yeah.
so I'm curious to see how it stacks up to Warhammer.
So we'll have an IC listener meetup at the Warhammer Citadel as
Oh,
well.
cool. Well, you're
Very
welcome to
cool.
organize all of that.
There you go.
Because I'm not going.
And we have a Games Workshop opening by us rather shortly, too.
Yes.
So
Los Gatos.
Gatos.
it's on Colin's going away party day. So
if you're in the area, maybe we could squeeze in
It's
going there for the opening and then racing back
Right.
there and playing.
right.
I'll see what
it's
people
pretty
think about it.
way out there, South Bay,
Yeah.
or Southwest
Los
Bay.
Gatos. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a pricey part of town.
Yeah.
So they got a good deal. It's
Probably
looking
a
good.
little shoebox of a
Looks
store,
like,
but
looks like there's a couple tables in there to
Yeah.
play on.
I would hope so.
And those guys from the Citadel also were at Warhammer World.
Uh-huh.
And they've been taking pictures and posting it up and saying, "Hey, we're going to do something cool in the shop. What do you want to name it?" And
Oh,
doing
very
some neat
cool.
stuff. Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So, like I said, this is the fourth and final episode of our Chaos Resurgent episode. Just a little bit about the show concept. We felt that as the lore has evolved now with Warhammer 40K, who knows what millennium we're actually in at this point, as the lore has evolved, Chaos has now come back to the forefront as the preeminent evil, the big bad guy.
Would you say that Chaos is resurgent?
Yes.
That's what I did say.
And they're
Right
actually,
in the title.
Oh,
how
it's in
many
the title.
times do we have to tell you we don't edit?
and they're scary again now. And so
Yeah.
we feel like we should talk about it.
Yeah, so we wanted to go into depth about each of the Chaos gods and their forces and all that. So this is the final episode. If you haven't listened to the other three, I'd highly recommend going back and listening to them, especially the Slaanesh one, which I think was probably my favorite so far.
It was the most surprising in terms of what we learned, I think.
Yeah. Like it was eye-opening for me. So anyway, we hope you enjoy the show. You guys got anything you want to add before we kick it off?
No, I'm really looking forward to
I'm
talking
ready,
about this.
yeah, to just jump in and talk about pink and blue and magical things.
All right. And Colin, a lot.
And a lot of Colin. This is your episode, bro.
For sure. All right. We will be back in just a moment after these messages, and we'll kick it right off. Wargamma.com, where you can get resin terrain, craters, lakes, lava pools, and objectives. Figure bases for all types of models. Character models including Battle Wolf war mounts and spawn seeds. Linked barricades. Choose from one of 6 designs to suit the origins of your army. From Star Pharaoh, Spawn Hive, Mechanoid, Dark Ancients, Dredelian Noble, and Chromag Scrapyard. Linked barricade sets include 12 large shields, which are 2 inches wide and 4 connecting walls. Cover nearly a 30-inch line. Sets also include a matching multi-gun turret. Wargamma.com. Alternative battle miniatures. All right, so as usual, we're going to kick it off a little hobby progress. Adon, you are first this week.
Yes, I am, because I did a lot of traveling, and so didn't get a lot of anything else done. Spent a fun weekend watching motorcycle races with Doug, but I don't think that counts. I got a Realm of Battle what's that thing called? The Sector Imperialis.
The city one?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Realm of Battle board, yeah. A buddy of mine was selling it, and he even painted it. So I have a painted, completed Sector Imperialis Realm of Battle board.
Just don't roll your dice on it.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what? That is seriously that is the one board you just cannot roll dice on because they're always cocked.
It's bad.
But I think it's neat looking.
It's a cool board, and I think the other thing I really am going to like about it is stealing one for a display board if I need it.
Yeah, for sure.
A large army or whatever. So, but yeah, that's really cool. And the other thing I got with that is the Imperial Sector, the big box of Imperial Sector things in the shrink.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I have a bunch of
terrain
stuff
to put together
use.
too.
Yeah. And I had scored some other terrain in other instances, so I probably have a couple of tables worth of good terrain now to be able to do that once I get it all completed.
Cool.
And I also didn't get any other of that other kind of painting modeling done because I flew down to Georgia.
Yep.
Meet up with Eric Carpenter at New Visions Tattoo and got my new artwork. I posted it in the community page, but my
what is it for the
Hydra
people who
tattoo.
haven't seen it? There you go.
It's a Hydra gripping the earth, and it's interesting because he made a really cool first version of it where what it was gripping was an Alpha Legion symbol. Mm-hmm. And I wanted it to be a little bit more subtle, so if you knew about the game or knew about what I was into, you'd know what it was. And if you didn't, it just looked like a really cool Hydra. So I said, hey, what if we did it over a planet instead? And the idea of the Alpha Legion kind of gripping Earth kind of has its own overtones.
Right, because you say they're loyalists, right?
They absolutely are.
So it's holding it for safety?
It's making sure that it's holding it. It's holding it in, for safety. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hail Hydra.
to preserve the Imperium. Don't cross the streams. You don't. If we can't do Buzz Lightyear Primaris, and you can't do Hail Hydra with Alpha Legion either. Okay. Thank you very much.
We're not supposed to talk about that anymore.
That's right.
Do you have plans to bring it up to up your neck?
No.
Up? No. Okay.
No.
Over your eyes.
Over your eyes, like that.
Like the Forge Word model.
Yeah. Come on, man.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
You still got to have a job.
Yeah. Well, in
law enforcement.
It was a really cool experience, though. He did a great job on it, I thought. And
it looks amazing.
Fun trip, and we got to play some Shadespire and hang out and drink beers and eat pizza. And
very cool.
And he had one of those fold out.
He has one of those
deals,
Workbox,
right?
the Workbox 3.0.
Yep.
So for those who don't know, the Workbox 3.0 is just like this massive storage system for any kind of hobby.
Yeah, it was originally created for crafters, but
scrapboxing or scrapbooking.
Yeah,
right?
scrapbooking, any kind of crafting stuff, but it adapts super well.
It's a giant piece of
stuff.
furniture that basically unfolds.
Yep.
It creates a desk area with a light as well as just tons of storage.
Yep.
Doug has one.
Yeah, I was going to say Doug has one.
I saw his. And that thing, man, I looked at it and then I started looking at it online because I'm like, all right. When I move to the other room and build out my gaming den, this may be something I get.
Yeah.
It is pretty impressive. It's not cheap. I mean, it's around $3,000.
No, $2,000.
It's like $2,000.
Not for the wood one, not for the wood colored one. It's $3,000.
Oh well, for the basic white one with the overhang, it's 19 something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think the other one is close to $3,000.
Yeah, I like the white one. It would fit with what I'm doing, but yeah, the wooden one is nice. It is more expensive, as you said, but some really cool features that you can do on it, and I like the fact that you can fold it all up, and it just looks like this big cabinet.
Yeah.
And you can actually roll the whole thing out.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was on wheels. That's pretty cool.
It's amazing.
The other cool thing, I mean, it's a solid piece of furniture.
Yeah, it is.
Like, it's not just like some IKEA furniture. Like, it's a solid piece. That's why it's so expensive.
Right.
but all the drawers in it and stuff,
That's
were the
amazing.
clear drawers.
It'd be
were
perfect for
awesome.
me, because I'm now I'm hobbying in the garage.
Yeah.
And just to be able to have that in my smaller place and just tuck it away, hide it away. And
Yeah.
Yeah. They actually have a shorter one too. It's only about 5 feet tall.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Who wants
have.
that?
No, you go big or go home on something
It
like
doesn't
that.
have the wheels.
Yeah.
But it's a very, very similar design. It's just more compact. It's smaller. So
I didn't
if you're in a
realize they had
smaller
a smaller
space.
one.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anywho,
Well, it is impressive.
Yeah. So good times there. And Eric gave me this book. It looks like it's the kind of book that you put like photos in, like a little photo album thing.
Mm-hmm.
But he put a really cool Space Marines logo on the outside, and inside of it is every data sheet from the Space Marine Codex laminated.
Oh, nice.
So you can take that with you and just pull out the data sheets you're going to use for your game.
sweet.
And I got there and said, "Oh yeah, I made this up for you." I was like, "Holy crap, this is amazing!"
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So it was props to Eric. Thank you very much for all the work and artistry and inflicting pain on me for 6 hours.
That's a long time.
That was a long session.
Wow.
Justin, you're up.
I'm up. So I actually unbelievably stayed true to my last hobby goal and promise for the first time since I've been on the show.
I was going to say forever.
So as I recall, I think my last promise was to finish a dark Drukhari. I'm trying to get better about just calling them Drukhari. It's going to take a while, but I finished a
boy.
actual patrol detachment for my Drukhari. So I managed to get 5 racks done. Just doing 5 because I don't personally see how they're that effective in the game. So they're kind of a tax unit, I view as. But I finished. They're super awesome models, and I have like 20 of them. But I probably only will paint up 5, maybe 10. But super cool. That new plastic kit is phenomenal. I mean, they're just creepy. Heads and hooks and barbs
that's
and all
awesome.
that. Yeah, a lot of fun. So got them done, and then I actually was able to take 3 of my 7 paint engines, and finally, actually, part of my other hobby goal and promise, I actually was able to do the oil washes.
Oh yeah, how did
for
that?
the first time?
What did you think about that?
It's your first go at it.
It's my first go at it. I'm still kind of weighing the differences because I've pretty much become a ink and wash master
Right.
at this point. So I'm kind of weighing: is it worth the extra time and effort to go through a couple extra steps and
Yeah.
more drying time and all that when
Is the difference really that worth it? Yeah.
Yeah. I just mostly did it on like the black carapace. So I airbrushed it up through maybe 3 or 4 shades of gray. So it was real kind of stark and garish. And then, you gloss varnish it. And then I went with a black over it. But I like the wipe away technique.
Yeah.
Because the idea is that, with a wash, when you put it on, it's there. And to get it lighter, you have to go back over it with a highlight. You have to paint
Right.
it back, right? Whereas with inks, you can actually wipe it away and kind of bring back some of that, almost like staining a
Yeah,
piece
that's
of
exactly
wood.
what it's like, yeah.
Literally. So it's cool, but I think I might have gone a bit too thick with it, or I don't know. I'm just not blown away by it. So maybe I need to just do a couple more experiments with it. But it was fun to work with, just a different medium,
Sure.
And then I came to find out too, which I was totally unaware, talking with my buddy Swen through Messenger. There's apparently different series of these oil paints, so it's not like they're all created equal.
No. Just like anything.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I got Winsor and Newton because I'm like,
Yeah.
which Winsor and Newton? Everything they do is awesome.
Right.
But there is like, I think 3 or 4 different like levels
Yeah.
of these things, and the pigmentation changes, and it's kind of this whole other medium that I need to like really experiment more with.
Yeah.
I foresee it more like, I know Colin mostly uses it on his metallics.
Yeah.
And it is cool because you get that capillary effect where, with wash, you have to really spread it around to get the coverage. Whereas with the oil washes, you kind of touch your brush to an area and it pools. And it's quicker. It's like a quicker wash.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. Because when I went to my racks, I was originally envisioning doing the oil wash again.
Yeah.
But I was sitting there like, do I really want to gloss these guys and wait a day? And I'm like, I'm just going to wash them with, acrylic inks. And
With what you're familiar with.
with what I'm familiar with,
Yeah.
and between the mixing medium that I like to mix in with my inks anyways, and
Right.
it looks phenomenal. And I don't know, I'm still kind of torn on it, but it's one of the fun things about the hobby. You can try these new
Yeah, so
techniques.
many different techniques, yeah.
Yep. So I got them done.
And it's like that chipping medium that I saw some people
yeah,
using.
he's using.
Yep.
It looks really cool.
Yeah,
And there's
it's
like
just a whole
salt,
different thing.
salt effects you can do for weathering,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's crazy. So yeah, and I actually got a lot more work done on those Talos as well because there's so much detail on these models, like just I mean, heck, you can see inside their like internal organs and stuff, and the rib cages, and so I'm in there painting all this stuff that you're never going to see.
I was gonna say from 3 feet away, no one's gonna notice.
No.
Oh, look, his spleen has so much detail.
Right. But yeah, for the most part, just a bunch of Drukhari, got that done, and then my next step, I'm painting up 2 succubi that I did heavy conversions on. And last but not least, I'm doing a custom Archon that I think I posted a picture of.
I think you did.
On
You
the
did.
community
Remember,
page.
that's the one I was like, we can't see the back.
Oh yeah. And then I see you post pictures of your Minotaurs, and they're all on your desk, and
Yep.
I'm like, God, this guy.
Well, that's because I gave away my the
Macromat.
The Macromat. Yeah,
That thing is so awesome.
I gave it to Colin.
I mean, the difference between, did you? Yeah, the difference
'cause
between.
he needs it for his business, and he's
Sure.
moving, and I was just like, you know what, dude, take this.
There you go.
I'll buy one. So
It's just such a great product, man. I'm so glad I have it. And you totally see night and day. Like the second you gave me a hard time for not using it, boom, I snapped some pictures of it.
it wasn't that it wasn't that you didn't use it. I think the problem was the behind it.
Yeah,
What
right.
You had the codex itself,
Right.
and the colors. Like I couldn't tell some places where the model ended and the
the
cover
codex started,
began.
yeah.
Like it. I was just like, I can't really tell what I'm looking at.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you see
the pictures
people.
I was taking. I was like, here's 20 guys that are basically
Yeah,
like,
right, right.
you know.
I mean, there's people who will take a picture just with behind a white piece of paper, and
fine.
that's fine. The whole point is to have that contrast. So you can actually see
Yeah.
the colors and the detail. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, that's pretty much me, and probably our listeners are going to be like, "Oh my god, if I hear this guy talk about Drukhari one more time, it's just I'm in love, man."
No, they're not.
It's a great book.
It's going to splinter their mind.
Ooh.
Hey, it's been a long day. Go ahead.
Okay. For me, so we had a hobby day here. Ultimately, it was just Anthony that showed up. Austin was going to show up, but then he couldn't make it.
Okay.
So Anthony and I were working on. Oh, and then Colin came out for lunch and kind of looked at what Anthony was working on. Anthony was working on his custodies and that kind of stuff, and they were just comparing different like golds that they were working with.
Cool. Did he finish?
Hey, thanks
those?
for the invite, man.
He made a significant progress on it. Did I not invite you?
No, but it's fine.
You were I thought you were doing
yeah,
something.
I probably was. I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in like wedding prep mode right now, so I probably was. Yeah.
I just was like Anthony and I were just talking, and it was just the two of us hanging out
Yeah.
initially, and then and I kind of didn't invite people because I saw that everybody was kind of busy.
Yeah,
So I had
no worries, man. No worries.
You're always welcome to hobby days because then you can help me elevate
Exactly.
what I'm working on.
Put me to work.
Yes, exactly.
Hey, Tom Sawyer, would you show me how to do this?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, you just dated the hell out of yourself. So I began
As he
painting
does.
20 of my Primaris Marines, the Minotaur's colors. They are coming out pretty well.
Nice. Yeah.
Pretty well. I was struggling to find certain colors.
Are you using primarily the GW metallics or?
Nope. I am using for my base coat Vallejo, I want to say copper.
Okay.
From Vallejo for the base coat, and then I'm basically following the tutorial Duncan has done.
Right.
In his tutorial, I can't remember what his base coat is, but the copper is effectively the same color, and I can run it through the airbrush better.
So you're just going for it on all 20 instead of doing like a test model to see if you can match.
I did do it on a test model first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had like a old Marine with a las cannon. I just
Cool.
tested it up there, and then you do that. Then you do a dry brush over the whole thing of like a brass, right?
Yeah,
Then
yep.
you do it was the first time I used the gloss wash from GW.
Huh.
And so you use that, and then you dry brush again lightly over that
Right.
with the brass again, just a little bit, and then you're highlighting silver, and it.
Which gloss
Great.
wash is this?
Yeah, so GW has a line of washes.
Yeah, matte
like-
washes and gloss washes.
Yeah, like
no
their
idea.
regular washes are just whatever, but these gloss washes are supposed to be used on metallics because they keep kind of the
Interesting.
shine.
Okay. Yeah.
And it works really well, really well.
Yeah, Duncan talked about it in the class that I took at Adepticon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a hard time actually finding them at Game Castle.
They're coming out with so many. I can't even keep track with the
Well,
amount of.
I noticed, to be honest, Game Castle's kind of slacking on the GW paints, and I said, "What's going on with this?" And the Vallejo paints, like they're pretty much gone.
Right.
And so I ended up buying this AK Interactive stuff, which Seth over at Game Castle he's all
Stuff's
hot
awesome.
on.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's great. This black I bought is the Black Uniform Dark Shadows black.
Mm-hmm.
Man, this stuff is so matte. It's like crazy matte, flat.
So like good for like soot effects.
Good
or
for that.
like-
Good for cloth.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I don't know that it's good for like bolters and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
It's just very different than what I was used to. It's noticeably different matte.
Interesting.
And yeah, it's good. It covers well. I'm not done with it, so I'll figure it out. But it wasn't just what I was used to applying.
Sure.
And so it kind of threw me off there a little bit.
AK Interactive does some really cool stuff, man. They have this stuff
it's a
called
solid product.
It's like a panel liner.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like a really saturated wash, and man, they have so many cool.
They have
little,
a crazy line of stuff. I mean, they sell metallics that you can then polish because they're literally metallic.
Well, and
you know?
I mean, they started with mainly scale model stuff,
right.
right? So it's a whole
Yeah.
different.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why I think Game Castle's covering them so heavily, but I think they're doing so, to be quite frank, at the detriment to other products that
Sure.
I'm looking for. Like, they're not really carrying the Vallejo stuff anymore. So in order to find that stuff, I just went to Amazon and ordered it
Yeah.
to be delivered. So, which, you know, yeah, whatever. What are you going to do? Then I bought some Liquitex gloss varnish, which is stuff that Colin pointed me to, in particular for prep for doing decal work. So when Colin came over, you know, I'd been asking him to show me how he does decal work.
Right.
So he walked me through his stages of the decal work stuff as he put them on his Custodes, the tanks. First off, the decals that he bought for those
Oh,
Custodes
man.
tanks,
They
from
look so
Forge World.
amazing.
Forge World, yeah.
Wow.
Their transfers are phenomenal. They're little works of art, you know.
They are incredible, and he was able to put them on just in seconds, and then now I'm done. It'll dry like
Yeah,
that.
he does like a gloss and then uses like the liquid solid set
Microsol
and
and
microsol. Yeah.
microset.
Yeah.
But he applies it different than he puts it on the model, then puts the thing down. He kinda
Lets
straightens
it
out.
dry for a bit first, or no?
Yeah, and then he does like I don't want anybody to follow my instructions on this. Like, I think Colin has made a video on it
Yeah.
that you can find, but then he actually uses like a little paper towel and just kind of rolls it like over the model,
Yeah.
over the area very
So
carefully.
it smooths it out. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, this is after it's even all smoothed out, and then he does a gloss varnish over that. And that's where I was really screwing up, was the gloss varnish over it, because before I'd have it on there, and then I'd do a matte varnish, and then eventually you'd see it kind of ghost
Like
up
the
a
skin,
little
the
bit.
skin around it too.
Yeah. The other thing he pointed out is that, especially for marine shoulder pads, he says people tend to try to put the logo too high on the shoulder pad where it starts bending.
Oh yeah.
And he says you'd be surprised. Like, put it lower down towards the lip of the shoulder pad
Right.
on the bottom, and it looks great. And the other thing he does is, like, normally I would put them in like a little dish of water. He just does a wet paper towel, sets
Right.
them on top of the wet paper towel. The water soaks through, and he
Sure.
can just peel them right off the.
Lift them that way, yeah.
Yeah, which I'd never seen before. So it was very helpful to me to see how he did it.
Very cool.
And so I'm super anxious to put on these Primaris Marines like the decals, because the other ones, once I have shoulder pads
Right.
with Minotaurs.
With a 3D relief on them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Liquitex stuff is cool because you can get medium, you can get the gloss varnish, and you
Yeah.
can buy large quantities for not as much as buying multiple things of
Very
GW stuff.
inexpensive.
Yeah, yeah.
Very inexpensive.
Relatively
It's funny you mentioned the Liquitex thing, because when I was doing the oil wash, because you got to gloss the model first.
Right.
I originally was going to do that with the Liquitex.
Yeah.
And from what I hear, and I think Colin,
This is not oil. You can't use this with oil. It
Oils,
says even
yeah.
on it, do not use it with oil.
but isn't that? I think that's what Colin uses.
I don't know if he uses this when he does the oil wash. So
Yeah, because it
you
does
have to
say
check
there
with
that
him.
it can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As always, I guess just do a test model, but I ended up just going with the tester's gloss,
Yeah.
the Model
Yeah.
Master, because that stuff just never lets me down ever.
Right.
Yep.
So so that was cool. I assembled a Thousand Suns Rhino for Colin, because that's kind of part of the last part of what he's been waiting on from me.
You assemble it for Colin? No, you assemble it for you to send to Colin. There
Yes.
you go.
There you go.
We've all had very long work days.
I assembled my 6 objective markers, my Chaos objective markers, which
The
is
old ogre banners from
ogre
the.
banners, brass rod into a thing. And I'm going to put kind of like
Go base,
Tzeentch
yeah.
symbols on the top, and then I'm going to put decals on them. Since
Ooh,
I know
even-
how to.
Even with that surface?
Yeah, it could easily go over this stuff.
Oh, wow.
It'll just
Yeah, it'll
you know,
it'll make the bends.
Yeah, it'll totally bend over these. So I
Cool.
think that'll look really cool after I kind of do a fade, the same kind of fade that Colin's doing with blue to like a dark
Sure.
color. Be easy. I mean, they'll paint up like no time.
Yep.
I used to have them for my World Eaters.
Right. I remember
and
those,
they were
yeah.
just great banners. So
Yeah.
it worked so well. Assembled. I'm in the process. I actually ended up not finishing assembling the Chaos Demon from Creature Caster that I got. The Lord of
Hips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's call him that. Awesome model.
The not Bellicor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The stand-in Bellicor. It's an absolutely incredible model. Goes together really well.
I was going to say, yeah, that their models just, they're very little cleanup. They go together perfectly.
Very little cleanup on it. The one thing I would say is there's no instructions with it at all.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of, wait a minute, what are these spikes
Would you say
for?
there's a little bit of dry fitting needed?
There's a lot of dry fitting
Okay.
involved. So I'm going to contact a professional.
Well, you're in luck.
Where am I going to find somebody?
We got the
that can help me out
driest
with
of
that?
fitters here.
No, seriously, no joking. It was a
Yeah.
lot of, does this go here? Does this go here? But it's a great model. I'm really happy I bought it. And then let's go into purchases. So I did a Forge World order.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
I ordered the Horus Heresy Age of Darkness rulebook, which I should have bought the last time I did a Forge World order, and I forgot. So I finally got that.
Nice.
I should have done it at Adepticon and
Yeah.
had them ship it over, but
That's okay. It would have been one of the 22 pounds of books you would have had to take out of your luggage.
no, I would have had
did.
them ship it for free.
Oh, yeah. For free, yeah.
But
I
the
should've
reality is now it's going to sit on my shelf. I don't know, maybe I'll play 30K in the near future. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Yeah.
But at least I have it.
You have
it's
it.
available if I need to go play. So plus it's fun to read through. So I'm kind of enjoying that. Thousand Suns Rhino doors,
Nice.
which is what I was waiting for because I was dumb and didn't order them again at Adepticon.
And that's one of those things, like, once you have some of the vehicles in your army that have them, like, you got
can't
to
go back.
Yeah. They
You
all
can't
have
go
to.
back. They
Yep.
all look so good with it. And then I got the Necromunda hired guns collection, which are like all the like free agents for Necromunda.
I wonder if I've seen those.
Oh, it's the Gorn guy, the Gorn half horn.
Oh, the
whatever
Beastman.
guy. Yeah,
Okay.
Beastman guy and like 3 or 4.
Oh, I
other
see. They had a
guys.
whole collection of all. Oh,
Yep,
yeah.
they're really really cool. For all that Necromunda I'm playing.
Right.
But here's the thing, like, okay, you
Was
know,
the squat in there, or is he not out yet?
he's not in there.
That guy's cool.
But here's the thing, like I was doing the orders, so I might as well order those. I'm going to use them eventually.
Yeah, sure.
That's what I keep telling myself.
Well, you
right.
could,
Because I got a whole closet full of Forge.
or you could always paint up that dude like as a kind of beast mini, and just throw him in there as like a Rubric Marine or something. You know, because the Zangor,
fit in.
Beastman.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Do a head swap.
And so then the whole reason I placed the order was because I ordered the Forge World Astreus super heavy.
I noticed
tank
you left that for last.
for
Yeah.
the Primaris Marines. So it was
Oh,
funny.
that's the big.
That Astray
Thing.
is
in that box there.
crazy.
So once I read the rules on it, I was like, oh, interesting. So it's like 38 power level, you
Yeah.
say. You know?
Yeah.
But the funny thing was,
Which is like a Wraith Knight and a half.
I was doing the Primaris Marines, and I really like painting the Primaris Marines, might I add. Like, I like that scale
Yeah.
of them. They're fun to paint at that scale. And I think it was Colin made some crack, or somebody made some crack about, oh, you should get that Forge World Astreus thing. And I'm like, that's right. They have that Forge World Astreus thing. Now, here's the thing. Like, I've gone through and inventoried all the pieces in it. That is one of the cleanest Forge World models I've ever seen. I mean, not just from the crispness of all the pieces and like the lack of
Nothing looks
seams
warped.
and that kind
Everything
of thing.
looks flat
Nothing
and
looks
straight.
warped.
Yeah.
And it does not feel greasy in the slightest.
Huh.
Like, I'll show it to you after this, and you'll be like, "Oh, this is really impressive." But I mean, it's a ridiculous looking tank, but that's why I needed another tank for the
gonna say,
Minotaurs, because
yeah,
I don't
right.
have enough tanks for the Minotaurs.
I just think it's so cool to see all these Minotaurs armies that are out there now. It's really cool to see how popular they've become.
Yeah.
What? Why are you looking at me like that?
Suck it, Adon. Suck it.
Could you imagine?
Oh my gosh.
I think
There's
I'm
like-
gonna sell the Minotaur.
this new Minotaurs character comes out that makes, Bobby G look like nothing, and everybody's
got
God, that would be
Minotaurs.
hilarious.
White Scars Minotaurs.
You guys are not even funny.
Speaking of which, did the Ultramarines
even guard
have those sold yet?
They have
or-
not sold.
Okay.
And here's the thing: like,
It's such a huge.
it's a huge lot.
Yeah.
I knew it was. It's priced aggressively,
Sure.
intentionally,
Yeah.
because
But it's assembled and really well painted.
assembled, is well painted. It's a wide variety of pieces, so you have very little you would want to add to it. Really, I mean, you could add more to it. Obviously, it's sniper scouts I don't have in there and that kind of thing. But the reality is, if it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
fine. I'm
Right.
fine with it. It
Right.
doesn't. It's no skin off my back. I will keep it if it doesn't sell at that price. I'm totally fine. And I had a couple people, even though I said very specifically, I will not part this out.
Yeah.
Oh, will you part that out? Will you sell these things? No, I won't, because there's no point in that. Like,
Right.
if I'm gonna keep it, I'm gonna keep
That's
it.
a tough thing about selling a collection, like for sure it's always you're going to sell it piecemeal, but it's so much work and
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, selling it piecemeal is just not worth it. Like, I would rather have the army. For example, for the game day for Colin leaving coming
Yeah.
up,
right.
like Austin's stuff is all packed away. I'm like, dude, he plays Ultramarines. I'm like, I've got an entire Ultramarine army.
Yeah.
You're welcome to play with it.
Yeah.
Like, just here's the list. Make whatever you want.
Oh, Austin will be making his presence, eh?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Look forward to meeting him.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. So, yeah, so great time. I mean, I actually got some significant stuff done. I'm really enjoying painting the Primaris Marines.
And Austin is replacement Doug.
Yeah.
Replacement Jeff.
Replacement
Replacement
Replacement Jeff. Yeah.
Right.
Which is funny because Doug moved to Austin.
Right, and
Austin
Austin's-
moved
yeah.
here. Over was under Unger, and Unger was overdone.
Yeah.
That's airplane.
Yeah.
Airplane.
Lost me.
That's airplane. You didn't see
Oh.
airplane? They were talking about they all work. Never mind. All right. Anyway, so moving on. Let's talk about
Surely we should move
commitments coming up. Don, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I'm not making any commitments. I'm going. I'm flying to Pittsburgh for a graduation and to help my son move into his new apartment, and then his girlfriend's graduating, and then I'm working 2 different graduations at 2 different campuses, and so
So just make sure you buy a bunch of stuff and you're covered.
May is just going to be a pain. I'm not going to.
He can't afford to buy stuff.
I can't.
Soon, though, his kid will be done with college, and then he doesn't have to pay for college anymore.
Well, he's already done. This is just the graduation. Yeah, he finished.
I'm
in
sure
December.
they charge you for something for that.
Oh, I'm still paying for a lot. Yeah, trust me.
All right. What about you, Justin? I just saw your
Look
notes.
at the notes. Yeah.
Drukari.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know specifically my next step. I pretty much have a 2,000 point list in mind that. So let me touch on something real quick. The FAQ. Can we touch on that just
Yeah.
momentarily?
Yeah.
Because it kinda ties-
Let's do this. Let's get through hobby goals in progress.
Okay.
Or,
So
the promises here. Then we touch on that.
mine's easy. Drukari. Something Drukari.
Okay.
I'm in the process. I'm going back to a lot of my vehicles and things. I have a lot of vehicles that need my crazy tribal neon green.
Right.
Which is so awesome.
Kill me
Yeah,
banding.
Good.
That's so good, dude.
So it's-
I know it
thank
kills
you.
you. I know it kills you, but it adds so much to those models. It's not even fun.
Thank you. And on that note, I found a quicker way to do it too,
Oh, nice.
involving Daler Rowney inks. Mm-hmm. Because they were all going out of they're selling
Hobby
through them
Lobby.
at certain stores.
Hobby
selling through
Lobby
them.
was ditching all of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I bought like 15 of them.
I heard.
But they have this neon green one that all I do is it's almost like a foundation ivory paint that I got from
Interesting.
Hobby Lobby.
Oh, right.
I do that first,
And then you just go over it with the.
and then I go over it with the neon green and the regular green kind of mixed, and it's like 2 coats and done. So I'm going to be going over a lot of that. Adon, actually, you pinged me in Games Workshop. They're actually having a Drukari vehicle painting contest.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
So I could probably enter
At the new
I
games,
thought
at
they
the new Los Gatos.
No, it's like a community
Community thing on the community site.
on the community
you
site.
could
So
totally-
yeah,
I
so
knew
I
that
figured
might motivate you.
I might pick like a razor wing or something that I did the sick airbrushing on, and then just do all the tribal stuff and the
Yep.
weathering and
Yep.
yeah. So
You
let's
would
call
totally
it that.
do well on that.
I don't know. I was seeing some of the entries that people were putting in there already, and I'm like, oh man. So
You're up there, dude. Don't
Go for it.
frigging
Go for it.
Yeah,
Might as well, right?
Seriously.
Yeah.
might as well.
Seriously.
So
What's the
that-
worst that could happen? You get up with a sick looking model. That's the
Right.
worst thing that would happen.
You're
Well,
right.
okay, so I'm gonna finish my 20 Minotaurs.
Uh-huh.
In particular, Hellblaster squads. By the way,
They're so
Which
so
are
good.
are
good.
so good. And work on these Thousand Sun Spanners.
Cool.
Awesome.
And you're not doing anything. That's right. Okay. All right. So now FAQ, big fat.
Yeah, so I was going to say, it's funny because going from last episode, like all the stuff that I was kind of griping about with competitive play, well, fancy that. They read my mind. All the, hey, Bobby G goes up in points and all a lot of the things that I was saying, hey, even on my army, Dark Reapers, fix them.
Yep.
They went up in points. And just the main FAQ in general, I've played 2 or 3 games with those new rules. absolutely like love them.
Mm-hmm.
Totally love the not deep striking on turn 1
Outside of your own deployment, you're half of the
outside of your own deployment is so cool. Like it.
So this is the thing a lot of people are complaining about,
I know.
right? And from what I've seen,
And I played deep strike heavy Drukhari.
like I was telling somebody, so Justin just drops down his 9 obliterators with his Chaos Lord.
Yep.
And he's like, it's fun. And I'm all, it's fun for you. Like there's nothing fun about, and it would happen more in 7th edition, right? Like putting a Land Raider on the table and taking it off the table.
Right.
Because, I drop in my Dread with a multi-melta and blow it up.
And just getting that feeling of just getting pinned in your deployment zone.
Yeah.
And not getting to really actually
Do
have
anything.
any tactical maneuvering, you know?
Right. Because the game is you go on your turn, then I go on my whole turn, and it's not a back and forth, unit thing. I think this is actually, in my mind and in the games I played, this was a fairly elegant answer. I thought. Now,
I could see how if you built your whole army around it, that's
right?
Sure.
That's kind of hard. But at the same time, it's like you can still deep strike, just plan for turn 2, in which case the enemy is going to already leave more open gaps in their line, and they're going to be...
Well, part of the argument is they'll have more of a chance to close up all the gaps. So,
well, yes, they will.
Right, and so you have to plan for that. It's interesting. One of our local players, AJ, he's a good competitive player. Really, it's fun to play against him because you can you see a lot on the table that you didn't see before.
Yeah.
But he used to be a competitive chess player.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how he really likes a lot of the changes because how it basically shifts the way you strategically think about the game. And he was putting it in terms of some of the chess stuff that he was doing. I was like, wow, it's really interesting. And because he just has a whole different way of looking at the strategy of the game, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to invite this firestorm or controversy over it.
Not at all.
I think that's all already happened. I mean, clearly, this show's coming out 2 weeks after that FAQ dropped or whatnot. But
I'd say the reception has been, from what I've seen, more positive than negative. From what I've seen.
Depends on where you read.
Well,
Yeah,
probably. Probably.
I mean, maybe I just focused too much on the complaints. I kind of didn't, I just kind of stopped looking because I honestly...
But the rule of 3?
I was genuinely I don't really care.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever. I understand that, as you said, people who've decided, okay, well, my army all comes down and wipes you out turn 1 and then you have no choice. But I would argue that is not fun. The changes they have made are specifically designed to extend the game a little bit and make it fun. It is not. It may be fun for you to drop 9 of Blitz with a Chaos Lord first turn in my backfield and destroy everything, but it's not fun when I don't get to play with my toys.
Yep.
It's
not
discouraging.
even for a turn.
Yeah, it's discouraging,
Just give me a turn.
Just give me a turn to shoot my last cannon once, please.
Right.
That's okay.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Right, right.
I killed an elf.
Right. Oh, I killed one of your Wraith Guard.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I agree with you 100%, Justin. I think I liked every change that they implemented. We played with a bunch of them at Doug's house, and as you'll hear in a little bit, and certainly not dropping in first turn changed the game dramatically, and I thought it changed it for the better, for more fun for myself and my opponents.
Personal favorite rule, though, has to be the rule 3.
Yeah.
So good.
And just for people who may not be aware.
So basically, you can only have 3 of any non-troop or dedicated transport army.
Right.
So I'm sorry, you're still going to be facing 6 Venoms or whatever. But
No,
I do a mix nowadays anyways. That's so 7th edition. But you can only have...
Is it?
It actually really is. Raiders are actually really good. I think I have 4 Venoms in my 2K competitive list.
Yeah. I'm just teasing you. I'm literally just teasing you at this point.
What was my train of thought? My train of thought
you were
was
saying that rule of 3.
only 3 any non-troop or dedicated transport. So I can only have 3 Ravagers. You can only have 3
Land
you can only have 3 Land Raiders.
Well, and there
goes that. Well,
And
I could have 4 Vindicators.
Oh, you can always have 4 Vindicators.
There are some data sheets that allow for multiples.
Yes.
And so if you had 3 data sheets, you could have a bunch
Right.
because they're
like anything, there's kind of ways
squadrons
to
and
maneuver
stuff like
around
that.
it a
but
little
for the most part,
yeah.
I agree. I mean, it goes back to that idea of diversification of the army and not just seeing 1,000 of the same thing on the table.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I do feel
Which I
bad
like.
for the people, world's smallest violin, for the people that bought 12 Plague Burst Crawlers or what have you, 19
Yeah.
predators, but it's going to make for a better game. And you know what? You can still play like with those 12 Plague Burst crawlers. Just do it like in a friendly game, I guess. If they're bringing something gnarly or APOC, you still have them. It's cool. And the CP boost for taking battalions. Is yummy.
Yeah. Really fun to play with those. I'm getting a lot better at using the different stratagems and stuff, and
you have
exploring
to
new areas. Yeah, it's just been super fun.
That's a whole new layer that I think really has enhanced this edition.
Yep.
The stratagems.
Yeah. So all in all, I mean, I give it 2 thumbs up personally. The FAQ.
Clearly, I made out well as a Thousand Suns player.
Yeah,
with the psychic smite stuff, which was huge for me. Even going up like one each thing wasn't a big deal. And that's how I was playing even before, I was like, let's play with that. Let's challenge myself.
And the keyword change too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where within a detachment, there's no more soup. Basically you
within
can't.
The detachment,
within the detachment, yeah. So it's just going to make for way more themed armies, way more diversified armies that are more fun to play against.
I concur.
How can that not be good for the game?
The most fun I've had in games where we're playing games with lots of different types of units. It just makes it.
Well, remember we used to talk about Highlander all the time,
Yep.
and how it just made things a lot more interesting.
Now it's Trilander.
There you go. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. We want to go games played?
Yep.
Sure.
Don, why don't we start with you?
Sure. We went to the April escalation day for our campaign.
Yeah.
This was 100 power.
This is at endgame.
At endgame, yeah. This is the 40K Fight Club escalation campaign.
That's already up to 100 power level?
100 power level.
Wow.
And brigade lists were required.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's right. I remember you talking about this. Yeah.
The brigade lists were, some armies had to go a little bit over 100 power level, but that was the goal, is to shoot for brigade lists. And we implemented the new rule about the extended stratagem or command points for the brigade
Which for a brigade is like now 12?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and then we also used ITC missions, the ITC championship missions.
Okay.
So again, the whole idea of this whole thing over the course of each month has been to look at different aspects of how to play 8th edition, how to play 40K. We used narrative rules one time. We used not Planet Strike, but the other one, Stronghold Assault another month. We started with really small games with small boards, and then this time was 100 power level list using ITC mission rules. We had a full house of 14 players, and I was very, very nervous for this month, because this is ITC. It's the competitive stuff. We have people in our group who they just started in 8th edition, or they're mostly narrative players, and we have other people in our group
out of their
and we have other people in our group are big time competition players, and play very well. But the number of people who came up to me afterwards and said, "Oh man, this was really fun. I really enjoyed this." In general, across the board, people seem to have a really good time with it. I think requiring the brigade lists, which forced that diversification that we're talking about, I think had a lot to do with it. And yeah, I think people had a really good time. There was people who I think had a negative connotation in their mind about what ITC lists were about and ITC missions were about. And I think, again, just like the competitive people who hadn't done narrative stuff or Stronghold, this is people who had never done ITC. And AJ did a little briefing primer about how to look at secondary objectives in the ITC list and how to select your secondaries. Could you get a choice of secondaries?
Yeah.
If your opponent has something like this, maybe you should think about this. And these are the reasons you would look at these different objectives. And it was a really cool kind of a learning experience for people who'd never seen it before, and got a lot of really positive feedback on it.
Cool.
People seem to really, really like it. So I was very happy with that. Our makeup day is May 15th for the Tuesday night players. So I have high hopes for that evening as well.
I can see that making for a somewhat long game with 100 power level, with all the CPs and learning those missions. Or were people finishing games
we had a full 3 hours.
Okay,
per
yeah,
game.
that's a good amount of time.
So just about, I think everybody finished their games pretty much.
Cool.
Because that was part of my goal too. Is we only played 2 games when we do these things, because I want people to finish the game. I don't want them to be worried about the clock.
Right.
Yep.
But I would love to do a day. Well, the Escalation League is going to be done in June when we do the APOC thing. But I would really love to do a day where we use the death clocks.
Death clocks?
War Machine.
Chess clocks.
Chess clocks. Yeah. I want to try that too. I've never
really
played
wanna
with a
try
clock.
That, try a day with that. Yeah.
That will be fun. Yep.
Okay.
So,
That's not for me. The
no,
clock- the
again,
clock
it's
thing.
just different ways
I get
of
it.
playing and trying things out. It's just like what we do when we do APOC. I think about it the way we do APOC, where we say, okay,
True,
the
APOC
movement
does need a
phase
clock.
is 10
Yeah.
minutes, go.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right? The
Yeah.
psychic phase is 10 minutes, go. And if you don't, you have to basically be selective about what you're doing first.
Yeah, sure.
It adds a lot to the gameplay. Like I think back to like playing Blood Bowl with like the 4-minute turns or whatever,
Yeah.
and it's like it creates that tension and that
You're also
that
more
stress.
likely to make mistakes.
You're more likely to make mistakes, and like it kind of gives you that sense of warfare and sports.
I'll take it back. I mean, I could maybe see that, like, because then you're just like, I got to move this guy over here, and I got to move this guy over here, and you're not spending a whole lot of time sitting there thinking about it.
And you don't go buy snacks and go to the bathroom while your opponent's moving their army.
Yeah.
Because you're spending your time thinking, okay, how am
What
I
am
going
I
to
gonna
prioritize
do?
my turn?
Yeah.
Right.
And I think the other benefit of it too is it definitely forces you, absolutely forces you to know your army inside and out. Because the more time you spend with your nose in the book of what's the stratagem and what's their strength, I mean, you should know that.
That's a good point.
So, yep.
Good point. Justin, you want to go next?
Sure. So I managed to get a couple games in against my my pretty little punching bag, Robert. I'm kidding. He's actually starting to kick my army's butt, man. The only thing that's saving me is mission. So I played 2 games against him, both of which were just bloody as all get out. We played a game of barbecue hammer in the backyard, set up the easy up.
Nice.
Which we had that discussion on the community page, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, the models will melt." And
No, if you put
I'm from the UK, and I'll melt. And it's like,
Well, let me tell you, dude.
It really depends where you're at,
A guy from Northern Ireland at my work, a guy from Belfast, came out to Utah. I did like an exchange program with 2 of my guys. I sent one out to Belfast and one came to Utah. And the guy that came to Utah, they went out to Moab, which is like the park out there.
Yeah.
And he got cooked.
Turned yogurt color.
Guys from Northern Ireland are allergic to the sun.
oh yeah, sure. I'm allergic to the sun too.
Because they never see it.
Right. So we
For centuries, it has been bred out of them.
Sure.
Beta carotene
Understandable.
is something they need.
So you go on Amazon and you buy yourself a $50 easy up.
Anyway,
So we threw that out. We were barbecuing, drinking beers, and played. He's been actually rocking his Tau lately.
Yeah.
And both of these games, like I said previously, we used the new FAQ. So rule of 3, which for the most part, I mean, my armies have pretty much been going by that anyways.
The rule of 18.
With the exception of my...
No,
No.
we have a house rule of 18.
Well, it's funny. Somebody mentioned they're like, "What about your 36 jet bikes?" I'm like, "I got 3 squads of 12."
Yeah,
I think they can go up to 12. Anyhow, super bloody game. I think at the end of this game, I had like 9 or 10 models left alive.
Yeah.
Just wrecked Dark Eldar vehicles just everywhere. And he actually came really close to winning it with I think it's the Yavarna. Battle. It's the Forge World battle suit that has the crazy flamer arms.
Yeah.
And he's using the new stratagems on it, where it's like I got him down to like 1 wound, and this thing is like, I'm gonna burn a stratagem, and I'm gonna act like normal and move way over here and torch this unit. And he ended up getting all of my backline, and it was the secure and control.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my dear God, I'm gonna lose this game from a 1 wound Yavarna. Thankfully, my Talos...
Thankfully, poison.
No. Thankfully, my Talos from the new FAQ now have the fly keyword. So I was able to
Re-engage,
real lucky and was able to move over, because I ignore cover, basically. I was able to move over this big terrain piece and got in combat with them. And my one Talos that had
I get really lucky because I ignore losing.
pretty much.
Ignore losing.
So, but just a hell of a game. But that's
amazing.
That whole game, I was like, there's so many F-bombs dropped with that Yavarna. That thing is so brutal. I hope you play against it one day, Carl. You'll enjoy it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And on that note too, so I've been kind of turning traitor with my Dark Eldar, and I've been using the Cabal of the Black Heart rules. They're so much fun. They have that 3-point stratagem where you can stop the other person's stratagem.
Oh yes.
Which sounds
you spend 3 points.
You spend 3,
but that's key. Like a
that can be
clutch
very
moment.
clutch.
you spend 3, and if you roll a 1, it doesn't work.
Because I was just telling somebody, I'm like, the most demoralizing thing ever is like, you're like, oh, there's 1 Terminator left, and you're just like, well,
I got to burn 2 CPs.
This guy fires this bolter, and okay, I caused 1 wound, and Terminator's 1 wound left, and he's like, oh well, I save. Oh no, I roll a 1. You're like, oh, thank God, I killed that Terminator. I think I'm going to
Reroll.
re-roll that. And you're like, no!
And then there's obviously bigger stratagems in the game that you use to cancel. Of
course.
Especially against a Tau, I'm going to burn one stratagem and all my weapons are like, you auto die.
Without
I'm like,
a doubt.
yeah, I'm going to stop that.
Yeah.
So that's been fun. And then we managed to play another game, and this one was not as bloody. This is the game that he should have, like, on paper, it was Relic, Hammer and Anvil with a spearhead deployment. Which the Tau
That's not good for the
Tau. That's like the worst mission we could have rolled up. But he made a game of it, and he had this relic on his Tau commander where he can move 20 and then assault 20, I believe. So he's got this commander that can literally move 40 inches.
And then he gets up like St. Celestine 3 times.
Right. I could be quoting that wrong, but I remember asking, "Are you sure you could do it?" Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure he can, but zooms him up. So the Tau, I've never seen the Tau play like to hell with this. We're going to lose. Charge. So he had these Tau charging the Dark Eldar lines, but playing really as strategically as he could, kind of bubble wrapping his stuff. And of course, I press forward. And his dice rolls this game were unlike anything I have. We were laughing, taking shots, and I'm sorry, man, I'm sorry. I'm like, don't be sorry. This is hilarious to watch. I mean, he would chuck handfuls of dice, and it was all 5s and 6s, and then roll them again, all 5s. It was an all game. By all counts and measures, he should have won that game. It was literally only the mission was the reason that I won. But the game came down to like, and he used the Storm Surge. Oh, enjoy that too.
You're pointing like I haven't played. Like I'm well aware.
Tau, and they have that chapter tactic.
This is Dark Eldar player
I
complaining
know, right?
about Tau. Get the heck out.
But hey, at least I'm advancing towards you. And I hate Tau so much. Even when you get to them, they're like, we're overwatching you on 5-ups with everything.
Oh,
It's
by
like,
the way, these guys all get to Overwatch too. You know,
and all these missiles, you're like 60 inches away. They hit you on 2s, rerolling 1s. Do you mind? Like, what?
Hey, I'm going to put a marker light here, a marker light there, and a marker light there. And now all those things all work as this. What are you talking? Just, you know what? Just roll your dice.
Just take your models off the table.
It's insane. But that game came down to like a last stand. He got the relic as far away as he could in his deployment on a catwalk of the new industrial terrain.
Yeah.
And then I loaded a bunch of characters into a Venom and kind of chased him down. And so we had this epic battle with his commander and Riptide on the catwalk of this terrain piece. And I finally
pretty cool.
chopped his head off and got the relic, and death to Tau.
There you go.
But
in this, we can agree.
Yes.
We can agree. 2
very fun games, and he's a great guy to play against. I'm sure we have an event. Let's have him over.
Very cool.
Stand up lad.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, if you want to have him come to Collins sing, we can open that up to him.
I'll toss the invite to him.
Slot.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Cool. Robert, you listen to that? You're invited.
Yeah, we'll send him an invite. Okay,
Cool.
So I flew out to Doug's in Austin.
Yep.
So jealous.
For a game day that he was throwing with a bunch of people who are also listeners of the show. So we had kind of set this up over a period of time where he was, organizing this with all these guys and whatnot. And so I think there was a couple people that couldn't quite make it, but we had, I want to say 6 or 7 folks there.
Yeah, at
pictures
least
were
6 or 7 of you guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking like an IC cult with your IC shirts. And
For sure. Like a lot of folks had those. So, I mean, these were people that came from some are local close to Doug, and then some drove several hours to get to Doug. But they're all from Texas and from kind of that area.
Cool.
But it was all people that you'd recognize from the IC's group.
Yeah, the community page.
Yeah, the community page. So Neil Balfour, Gunnar Sorum, like these are guys that you see post all the time. Daniel Givens, Nick Pumphrey, John Troutman, Brett Davis, Doug, myself.
Right.
So significant number of people were there playing. Let me tell you, first off, thanks to Doug for opening his house to everybody. He let a bunch of us stay at his place. Shell went out there with me, got to spend time with his wife and stuff, and just Doug's place is amazing, and the battle barn
The battle barn just looks so cool.
is so awesome.
And those tables.
Yeah, and Doug knocked those out like really quick because he was like, at first I was like, it's 2 months away, and then he's like, it's a month away, and he's like, it's in 3 days, So
like every gamer ever.
like all of us.
Yep.
They looked amazing.
All the armies were painted up beautifully.
All the armies were painted. The guys were super nice and super friendly and very, open.
Well, except for Doug, but yeah.
Yeah, well,
Well.
we'll give him a pass because he
It was
let
his
us
place.
go to his place. Yeah, we had such a great time. Doug and I hadn't played in a long time, so Doug was like, when you're coming out, like my first game's against you, I don't, I'm like, yeah, of course, So it was just a great weekend. We ate good food. We watched the F1 race. We went out to the Salt Lick, which is a famous barbecue place out there. It's just
Also known as
insane.
Meat Sweats.
Jesus, dude.
That Formula One race was no
The
joke,
Formula
too.
One race.
Was it more meat sweaty than the Brazilian steakhouse? Or
Yeah. It was just great.
wow.
And they just keep,
that's saying something.
Yeah,
man.
that's saying something.
it was intense. It was good. It was very good. Doug's place is beautiful. And so we all hung out there. We played a lot of 40K. They actually started the day before I got there. I flew a red eye, which is just a nightmare of a flight. I ended up getting in at like 4 a.m. to
Yeesh.
Doug's house finally. Slept till, I don't know, 9 and then got up and started playing. So great time. So my first game was against Doug, as I just mentioned, his Imperial Guard. We played on this table. There was a fat mat that is the water mat.
Yeah.
And
But
he-
he had built all these
Yeah,
islands
yeah.
on
It looks so cool.
with
bridges and
bridges
stuff.
between the islands.
Yeah.
Now the thing we said was, okay, it's like a marsh type thing. So we've
Yeah.
got like troops can walk across the water. That's fine. Vehicles can't. They get stuck in it. So you can't can't drive a vehicle in there. Like,
That's cool.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
This was a game where Doug like castled everything in one corner, except for when he first started playing, he was in one corner, and then he's like, oh, and then he castled everything in another corner. All I had on that side of the board was a Land Raider and a Predator.
It's so unusual for the IG to castle.
I know. You never see that.
And yeah, but he's castled up on an island, like just a little.
Well, that's cool,
right? So it's like I can't like.
Even more defensible.
How many times did it cross your head? Man, I wish templates still were.
Yeah. So well, my las cannons on the Predators made kind of short work of a few things here and there.
Good. You're liking those, huh?
Oh, dude, it's night and day.
Yeah,
Like,
buddy.
those super good.
Rule of 6.
I'm telling you, man.
The objective in this case, we actually had 2 objectives. The first being, kill points based on power level. Your warlord was worth double.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And then the other one was also
Like monsters count extra too. Yeah.
And the other one was also like kill points or something. I don't remember. We drew like 2. And,
Yeah.
long and short of it was, I'm always afraid of IG, especially turn 1 once they start.
They're
firing.
terrifying,
But Doug
yeah.
had like a really bad first round of firing, like a lot of misses and that kind of thing. And this thing fires, a 2d6 worth of shots. Maybe it's gonna fire 3. Okay, stuff like that. Where I was able to finally just like swing away from stuff. I kept my las cannons pretty much in place, firing it as vehicles that I saw as threats, and I got real aggressive with a rhino right off the bat. So now that I know. As I've pointed out on the board, I didn't realize, well, the way my army's built, I actually get 6 more inches on all my psychic abilities
Right.
for Thousand Suns.
Right.
Because that's my...
Brotherhood of Psychers.
Yeah, well, it's not that. I can't remember what it's called, but, when my army is battle forged, this is the
benefit they get.
yeah, the benefit I get. So now I'm throwing things that are like 24 inches where they were 18 inches before, which allowed me to throw things like... buffs to vehicles and that kind of stuff. So I had like, well, I'm going to run this rhino right up the middle with 5 guys in it. But now it's harder to hit. You have to subtract 1 when you go to shoot at it. And not only that, it has a 5-up invuln, right? So, and I was able to take my sorcerers and Ahriman and just have them spread out, casting these things all over the place.
Because they had a lot more distance.
Yeah. Did you see what it is? I know you're looking it up.
I'm looking it up.
Yeah. So anyway,
Awesome radio.
no, that's okay. So anyway, it just gave me like a much larger area for which to move my guys and cast more effective spells. I mean,
Is that
even
the one
my-
where he had the picture of the one dude standing out in front of the tank?
Yeah. I mean, like even my smite is, I think smite's normally 18 inches.
18.
I'm just pulling off top. So my smite's 24 inches.
Nice.
So I can
Huge.
be far. I mean, I'm still hitting the closest unit, but I get a little more flexibility
Right.
there.
Yeah.
So I mean, and plus, again, not taking any minus, not making smite significantly increase each round.
Yeah.
I'm just
Smiting
nuking
away.
the heck out of stuff. I mean, I had some.
What were your
success.
heavy hit? Did you have like demon princes jumping forward or
I have
anything?
no demon prince yet Colin's painting one up
Okay.
right now for me. He's painting the old Fate Weaver up for me. I'm going to use him as a Demon Prince, the smaller one.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I have Armin and an Exalted Sorcerer.
Sorcerers, yeah.
And those sorcerers are no joke. And so it just worked out really, really well to the point where I shifted almost my whole army all the way around the table the other way.
Yeah, it's called Brotherhood of Sorcerers.
Brotherhood
you
of
go. Yep.
Sorcerers.
Yep.
Right.
For Grey Knights, it's Brotherhood.
Right. But it's actually two different things. Like
Yeah,
it's
it's two
different
different things. Right.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short, because I was confined to these islands, like I had to get to his other flank. I had to kind of go around the entire edge of the board, but things were moving so quickly. Warp time helped a few things here or there. That I just started chewing through vehicles, and I was losing stuff left and right.
Sure,
too.
as you do. Against,
This is one of the things I really appreciate about 8th edition. The best games of 8th edition, which seem to happen frequently, like you're both destroying each other.
It's bloody as hell,
right?
Yeah.
You, at the end of the game, there were not many units left on the table, and and then I wasn't even sure what the hell the points were at that point. I thought I'd lost, and we totaled it up, and I was actually significantly ahead.
Wow, yeah.
I could have swore I was like, I've lost way too many points. Like my Terminators came down, my Terminators went away. It's like, yep,
as they do.
That's what they do. So anyway, friggin' amazing game. I think Doug and I had just tons of fun, and we laughed through the whole thing. My next game was we did like a big team game where we had 3 per side. We played 50 power level each. It was getting kind of late at this point, and this is one of those cases where Justin's been a party to this too, and honestly it drives me bonkers. And I love this guy, not just Justin but Gunner. I love this guy, but
got a little schmammered,
dude. It's so frustrating to me when somebody gets so hammered at a table that they can't play, because I'm just like, we just invested 4 rounds in this and you're not functioning, you know? And I'm just like, I just want to finish the game at this point,
right?
Because I want to see how it all comes out. It literally got to the point where we were like, I was like, well, everybody's trying to decide what to do, and I'm like, well, Gunner can't play anymore, so let's just call it. Because I was just like, and everybody was like, yeah, let's just call it.
Was it at least late into the evening?
It was late.
Okay.
It was totally late.
That was like the team game that Adam
Gunner's
and I had.
funny, dude. That dude is like, he does not stop talking. If you think I talk a lot, you've seen nothing. Nothing. I'll be involved in a conversation with you. Let's say Adonis Gunner, and we'll be like, "Hey, so what did you?" Or actually, let's go you. "Hey, so what did you think of Infinity War, Adon?" Right. Blah blah blah. And then you, as Gunner, just start carrying on a different conversation with me, and all of a sudden, like my brain's like, "Wait, who? What? Who am I supposed to be talking to?" And then you don't want to like cut somebody off, but you're like, hey, well, yeah, okay, hang on a second,
Gunner, did you take your Ritalin?
Blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
but he's an amazing guy, like super nice.
Cool.
All of these guys, like I'm very happy for Doug, because I think he found some players that he connected with in that area that he's really enjoying playing.
That's cool. And for the most part,
John Troutman, dude, like that dude's great. Like
nice.
Everybody got along with John very, very well.
They're all still embracing power level for the most part.
Yeah, all we played was power level.
Cool.
It was super, super fun. And then my last game I played against Nick Pumphrey, and he was playing, it was 50 power level game, which my army doesn't quite scale super well at 50 power level.
Yeah.
But he was playing all Primaris Marines.
So it's elite versus elite at that point.
And a Contemptor Dread with like missiles and lasgun and everything. I'm like, okay. And so this game started off, and it's the one where the satellite comes down. You have the 6 objectives.
Oh, right.
Satellite piece comes down. All the other objectives are
Go
worthless.
away.
Just
Yeah.
that one is now valuable. It dropped in my backfield, like in as good a position as I could have possibly hoped for.
Nice.
And he's now having to walk forward long ways on the table.
Oh no.
To get to where he is. And so, there's all city terrain. There's a lot of line of sight blocking stuff. So I'm kind of trying to, okay, the Predator doesn't want to move, but okay, I'm going to have to move it. I'll use this command point to have the Predator fire as normal anyway.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, I gave him prescience. So, okay, he's hitting on 2s.
Oh, God.
All that is going on. And even in my game against Doug, I forgot that guys near Armin or the Exalted Sorcerer
Reroll
rerolling
ones.
Reroll ones, yeah.
This game, I didn't forget that.
Hitting on 2s, rerolling
great game.
ones.
He's like kind of sneaking his way
yeah.
through the ruins. I'm punking his guys left and right, and that dreadnought was so brutal. Like it just doesn't want to go down. Finally, I take this super risky move, and I'm like, Armin is going to move 12 inches, and now he's like right in lane of fire.
Yeah.
And and now I'm going to cast Warp Time. And I'm like, and I need to make this roll. I make it. Okay, great. Armin zips over around the corner, assaults his captain and some other guys. And, but before he does that, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to cast this psychic ability on these, Rubric Marines that are there. Oh, look at 12. Okay. So Armin perils of the war.
No.
Okay. I take 1 point of damage. Okay. I can handle that. All right. Now I'm going to cast this. Oh, look, another 12.
Yeesh.
Oh gosh.
Oh, Armin takes 3 mortal wounds. Okay, so now I'm at 4 wounds right at the get-go. Well, the twist in this game was debris is falling from the sky, so every round you would roll 3 dice.
Oh,
and
no.
And for every 6, you pick a unit. That unit takes a D3 wounds.
Oh,
I'm
no.
in close combat. Nick rolls a 6. And he's like,
No. Armin.
Armin takes it. And we're laughing because I'm like, it's not very thematic. And then Doug's like, what are you talking about? It looks like a big Acme Acme safe just falls on
That's exactly right.
But the interesting
It's
thing,
like having somebody bring a moon down on top of you.
I'll get to the last part, which is the interesting thing was at a certain point, Nick's like, I can't win. Like he thought the objective he was going for was right against the wall. So he thought he'd be able to get up against the wall and be owning it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was set back about like 5-6 inches from the wall. And when he realized that, he's like, I can't win. He goes, I think we should just call it. And this is like round 4. And I go, are you sure? And he goes, yeah. And I go, so listen, I'll accept your surrender if that's what you want to do. But I seriously think we should play this out. I think you've got it.
Okay.
And he's like, are you sure? And I start like measuring all this. I'm like, I'm telling you, if this happens and this happens and you get here on a run, you'll probably get that and win. And so I thought he was going to have to roll like a 4 or better if all that played out. All that played out, and I measured it, and I'm like, if you roll anything but a 2 or 1, you win.
Wow.
And then he rolled like a 4, and he's like, oh. And I'm like, see?
That's why it's
I told
a
him.
lot of times it's important to
And
play
Nick
it out.
said, he's like, I learned, play it through.
Play it
Like,
out.
just
Once
play it
I
out.
lost the game against Chris where I was completely slaughtering him, and he won the game with 1 orc left alive.
I remember that.
I was like, don't give up till it's. I mean, sometimes it's
Sometimes-
really over, and you're just
Yeah.
playing for fun at that point. But if there's a chance,
And we talked a lot about this, and I think that the difference is if you're making progress,
Right.
like keep playing the game.
Right.
If you're in a game where it's like you just have made 0 progress through
Right.
the entire
Or
thing,
it's mathematically impossible
that's
to
where
win.
yeah. But in this case, I was like, don't give up yet, Nick. I think you got this. And sure enough, he was able to squeeze in there. If I hadn't lost Armin to his own mind powers, I would have been
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
But
it sounds like you're getting to really know that army
you know
a
what?
lot better.
I am getting better at it, and adding the Zangors was a huge move. Getting
Yep.
a Demon Prince in there is going to be huge for me.
Yep.
So once Colin's done with that guy, I have also units like the Vortex Beast, whatever.
more fun units.
Yeah.
Just here's the thing I'm doing with the Thousand Suns because I am commissioning a lot of stuff from Colin for it. The neat thing about it is it's not a huge army. I mean, you have that codex in your hand. It's a thin codex.
Yep.
You can take some Chaos Space Marine units, tanks, that kind of thing. But for the most part, I almost have every unit in the codex now.
Right.
There's a few things I don't have, which I'll end up commissioning through Colin again. But then like Colin kind of taught me this with his AdMech. He was like, I'm done. Like I have every unit. I don't really need to add any more. I'm kind of done with this collection.
Right.
And so for a while, I'm going to be done with this collection. And I'll be able to play all these different units.
Yep,
I
different
wanna get some of
combinations.
those Zangors on the discs, the like shaman guys. And
then you'll
stuff.
have to get 2 of each.
Well, some, but
Yeah.
like, I mean, I'm going to have
3 of each. Rule of 3.
four
Yeah.
squads of Rubric Marines.
Yeah.
5 Rubric Marines is
Yeah.
plenty. I don't really need to add any more of those, So I'm feeling really good about the army. And like you said, I'm getting more comfortable with it. I'm finding this stratagem. I'm going to use this stratagem. I'm going to use, the psychic powers.
So
I'm starting
important.
to get used to.
I think it's important too to like not always be changing your list. I mean,
gotta stick
clearly,
with it.
if a list is not working, like change it. If you're not feeling it, you're not having fun with it. But if a certain unit you play 1 game with it and it gets wasted, give it another try.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, and try not to change the list too much.
There was a time I played against Aaron and he was running Necron Immortals, and I was like, I couldn't kill these things. Like I was like, these things are freaking ridiculous. I see why they're called Immortals. Like nothing I threw at them would stick.
Yeah.
And then like the next game I played against them, I just like wiped them off the table. I'm like,
Yep.
maybe I just had a bad experience
Right.
last time. No, I'm not so concerned about that.
Perception can be reality at times. Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, Doug, thank you again for letting all of us come out there. We had an absolute blast. It was so much fun, and I'm really excited that he's found people that he can play with.
And next year
and connect with.
He'll be hosting CarlCon, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
His place is huge, man. Huge.
And thanks for MotoGP. That was awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, do we got anything else we want to add to this section, or should we?
No, I think we're
I
good.
think we should change gears.
Okay.
And
Ooh,
Well done.
nice. We will be right back.
Great Scott, 00. Foam Finger's destroying all the models with his rough touch.
Oh, Mullins Penny. Don't you worry. John is on the case.
How is that, John?
I'm going to warn the world that they should be using the soft blue foam with the hard cases. Foam Finger will never ruin another model again.
You mean Operation KR? Is the world ready for that, John?
The world is ready. I'll make sure of it. The only way is to spoil Foam Finger's plans.
Hard cases with the soft foam is the only answer. You've convinced me, John. Let's move forward with Operation KR.
The name's Jond. Jimmy Jond.
Oh, John. See? Give 00 John the figures for this mission.
Go to krmulticase.com for some of the best storage and transport solutions for your Army. Match almost limitless combinations of cases and trays in the KR transport system to suit your personal requirements. Reasonably priced, KR allows you to transport your minis safely to and from the tabletop, no matter where that battlefield is.
Hard on the outside, soft in the middle. KR Cases is where John always gets his foam. KR Hard Cases for soft blue foam.
All right, so we're back. As we talked about at the beginning of the show, this episode is dedicated to Chaos Resurgent Tzeentch. This is our kind of cover, our final
fourth
coverage,
and final.
yes, of the Chaos Resurgent
Save the
series.
best for last.
Before we get started, I forgot to add something during the hobby progress, which is I want to talk a little bit about Southwest Airlines, and I know,
jeez,
I know your wife works for Southwest, Don, but I will never take Southwest if I'm traveling with my wife again. Like if we're traveling as a parent, because I like to sit with my wife, and we checked into our flight back like super early, but then like we were in like boarding group C towards the end of it.
No. That's not good.
And it was not good. And I ended up checking my models in because they had no more space.
Overhead space, yeah.
Yeah. And guess what? KR, soft foam
Came
protector miniatures, hard case
You checked the backpack, huh?
I had to check the backpack, yeah. Right there at the gate. You know what? I wasn't worried about it. And everything came through fine.
Beautiful.
Yeah, everything came through fine. So
That's good to know.
That is the one downside. I mean, I've been doing a lot of traveling, like
but you're
short
doing it
trips
solo, right?
Solo,
Yeah.
right.
I mean,
And-
I think it's great solo. Don't
yeah,
get me wrong.
And especially the way I travel, because I have to, because I'm flying on a
Standby
employee thing.
kind
Yeah, it's
of,
all
yeah.
standby, right? And so, and they tell you, C means center.
yeah.
You know, oh, you see a center seat, that's yours. Take it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's just the reality of it. And you're right. You're right. If you want to make sure that
Yeah.
you're going to get to sit together and you want to get an aisle for sure,
That I'm going to pay for it.
you're going to pay for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, as it was, we did end up sitting together, but I had to check in my bag, which was
Yeah.
a little like, I really don't want to do this, but I'm going to. And then the worst part was you sit down and you're like, I could have totally fit it right up there, you know?
That's really good to know because I got my eye on one of those backpacks.
Yeah, well,
So,
we're getting you one, but yeah, it went through no problem.
Yeah.
Came out.
I've
got
done
it,
that before too.
No sweat.
Remember that one trip that we came back from Adepticon? I was arguing with them. There's like hundreds of dollars of miles. Sorry, sir.
In this case, there's thousands.
Yeah.
But it went through fine, and I mean, what are you gonna do? Sometimes you just gotta say, well, shit.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go for it. And
very, very little cleanup, huh?
So what I'm
Fixing
saying
it.
Like
is-
the guy says in Risky Business, sometimes you just got to say,
yeah,
what the?
yeah. So KR has my money because it went through just fine.
Boom.
Tzeentch. You want to add a couple points to Tzeentch
Okay.
here real quick?
Is that how we say it? Is that how you
before-
pronounce it?
That's how I pronounce it.
Now I understand the whole tomato thing, but come on, everyone. Let's just, as
agree.
a community,
Get together.
let's come together. So through my Games Workshop career, and especially working for Games Workshop, I've heard everything from Tzeentch to Tzeentch.
Yeah.
Tzeentch.
Tzeentch just
It doesn't even end in
what?
an A.
So
Tzeentch.
Tzeentch, yeah, and some others that just blew me away. So just pretend the T is not there.
Tzeentch. Yeah.
Tzeentch. And you're good.
All right. Is it Tyranids or Tyranids?
It's definitely Tyranids.
Yeah. Tyranids sounds...
Tyrannids.
Oh, that's a...
Tyrannids.
Anyway.
I've heard that one.
Well, you know...
Or Mephiston.
Abaddon? Abaddon.
Yeah, that one, I've heard both ways on recorded
On
things.
recording.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's one of those, of course, right? Because even
Right.
from the company.
Right. Even the company doesn't know how it's pronounced.
Yeah.
Well, hey, those are ancient records in the far future that nobody really knows what his name was.
I think it's Doug. Doug calls them chimeras.
Does he?
Yeah.
Chimera.
And it's chimera. Yeah. But,
Chimera.
That's
Chimera,
funny.
Whatever.
I've heard that a lot of people say that.
Oh, yeah.
one.
Yeah.
I remember I used to always call them chimeras too until like the historical kind of nerdy guy at the hobby shop was like, dude, it's chimera. It's from a Greek,
He's right.
He's right.
Well, I always used to say chitinous because I had
Chitinous.
just read it. It's
Yeah.
chitinous. And I had just read it.
Right.
So,
I'm sure we say things
all the
incorrectly
time.
all the time. So
Who are we to correct
we're not
anybody?
passing judgment, but come on.
But it's Tzeentch.
But it's
But it's Tzeentch.
Okay. Speaking of Tzeentch.
Yeah. He's kind of cool.
He's very cool. So
Yeah.
our last episode was all about
Slaanesh.
Slaanesh, who I think my eyes were open to how cool that entity is within 40K.
Almost pried open with chains, right?
Yeah, it's kind of gross. Tzeentch is honestly
Kind of got obsessive about it. I
Yeah,
thought.
he did.
Tzeentch is honestly my favorite chaos god in terms of, and this comes from a chaos player
Yeah, mine too.
primarily. Originally, it was Nurgle for me. I like the undead kind of thing in D&D and all that. And Nurgle kind of fit that bill for me. But
Tzeentch is far less direct, right?
as I became more involved in the lore and understanding
Yeah.
it more, like
As you evolved as
As I
a
changed.
legion of as a minion of chaos.
I have definitely latched on to the cerebral kind of sorcerer aspect of Tzeentch. So when we talk about Tzeentch, Tzeentch is known by a number of different names. The Raven God in the fantasy world.
The changer of ways.
Changer Ways is probably the biggest, right? That people refer to him. The Great Conspirator, the Chaos God of Magic, change, evolution, destiny, lies, trickery. The thing that I really dig about Tzeentch as a chaos god is how insidious Tzeentch is. There are plans laid within plans laid within plans when his followers are concerned, and as far as his plans are concerned, nobody can even unravel them. They are so
Right.
complex and
Right.
they make the Alpha Legion look like Weeble Wobbles.
He's like the ultimate puppet master.
He really is.
He has everybody on these little strands of fate.
Yep.
A lot of the stuff when I play Alpha Legion, a lot of times I'll use Tzeentch marks because it just makes sense
I
for
can
the
see
army.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Alpha Legion's an interesting one because I always feel like they should be Tzeentch, but they're not. But they're kind of just
They're kind
chaos.
of Black Legion-y.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Unmarked. Yeah.
So I mean, he's the weaver of destinies, the architect of fate. Like everything, as I talked about his plans, like everything that happens where he's involved happens for a reason, even though it may not be apparent to anybody around them.
He has always possessed all 6 Infinity Stones.
Yeah.
Listen,
Great movie.
No more spoilers.
But great movie.
We're not going to spoil anything, right?
No, we're not.
Okay. We both hate that, by the way. People.
Yes, absolutely. No, it's a great movie.
So that said, boy, it was really sad when.
Yeah, right.
So Tzeentch itself, I mean, we see in the models and those kinds of things depictions of avian nature and that
Fish
kind of thing.
and strange.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
all these
But
different.
usually avian.
Yeah. But no two accounts of how Tzeentch himself or itself or whatever looks like come out the same. They're always different.
Sometimes he's a huge mass of shifting colors.
Yep.
Or as a mighty demon with vulture's beak,
Yep.
like most of his greater demons.
Yep.
That's kind of what I visualize when I think of him as kind of this ultimate, as you do,
Bigger Lord of Change.
a bigger Lord of Change, with maybe 8 heads, 9 heads, just
4
some,
arms.
yeah.
That'd
yeah,
be kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, but he could. That's the thing. Like Tzeentch could be all those things or none of those at all. Or it could
Depend on
temporarily
who's
be
looking
something
at him.
like that. Being the Lord of Change, he literally embodies change itself.
When I first started reading things about Tzeentch, one of the things that made me think of was a beholder from D&D.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
wanted that kind of, because it's always morphing
Moving,
and changing.
something's moving.
Yeah.
I think one of the coolest stories I read were like these stories about like these devotees of Tzeentch that supposedly saw him and scribbled down these things. And the one that I really glommed onto was that the skin of Tzeentch crawls with like these constantly changing faces that are leering and mocking onlookers. And as he was speaking, the faces
They're
were
like mimicking what he's saying.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of thing, like faces would appear and disappear on him and that kind of thing. I really like that concept.
Yep.
I mean, I remember when I was first getting into kind of Tzeentch, I saw on Cool Meaning or Not, this guy who'd made like kind of a custom greater demon of Tzeentch that looked like a gigantic like blue and pink horror, but it was like all custom made. And I wrote the guy and I was like, how much to make me a model like that? And he never got back to me. And then like a year and a half later, he got back to me. He's like, oh, it'll be like $350. And I'm like, well, I've kind of moved on at this point. You know?
Right.
But at that time he would have had me because I mean, like it had all these like shape shifting things on it. It was just the coolest thing I'd ever seen representing Tzeentch.
That's cool.
So again, like he's kind of the embodiment of change. He's the embodiment of subtle plots and as you said, the puppet master of those kinds of things. I
always think of Tzeentch as being the guy who has infected the mind of every like spy novel writer ever, because they have all the changes and turns and twists and turns. Like that's very Tzeentchian, you know.
And in fact, I think that would make like a really cool Black Library story where it's like involving this espionage stuff, but it's really subtly behind the scenes being manipulated.
Tzeentch is manipulating it. Yeah,
it's exactly what would occur. And you know, people who find themselves much like Slaanesh in a way, people who find themselves ensnared in Tzeentch's influence, like don't even realize
they don't realize it, right?
They they may go way far and not realize it until it's too late.
Yeah,
right.
And Slaanesh is very much like that too.
Yep.
Whereas I feel like Korn and Nurgle are very much like, you got a disease, or I've chopped your head off.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
And a lot of Tzeentch's followers tend to be people that aspire to power.
Yes.
And with that,
plans within plans.
Well, hand in hand goes sorcery, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's a pretty ultimate power. So those types of people tend to find themselves wittingly or unwittingly worshiping the changer of ways.
Yeah, because he is also the undisputed master of sorcery.
Yep.
And this is what attracted me to this god, because I started getting into like this idea of like chaos sorcerers.
Right. And magic.
And the whole future magic or whatever it is. And I just really, really like the idea of these guys are, as you said, like they seek power and it corrupts them, and then they're powerful and they're corrupt, but they don't care that they're corrupt because they're so powerful.
Right.
That kind of thing really.
And the plotting, the scheming is cool too. It's kind of like that. This plan may take several thousand years, but all these little steps that it takes of making that plan come to fruition, and knowing that he kind of knows all those steps are going to take place, and he's pulling those strings to make it happen. It kind of adds that layer of that depth of character that you really don't get from I'm going to crush your skull or make you fall apart from maggots or it's fascinating.
Right. I mean, just everything about him is changing and shifting, and you can never nail it down.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
And the line I liked the best was, perhaps the best way to characterize Tzeentch is not to describe him at all, as over time he differs from himself more than he does any other being. So like he's never locked down to one particular thing.
And they also hint at too, like even if Tzeentch's plans go to fruition and he takes over the world and he's all powerful, like he'll just change it up and
start it again. Do something different.
Yeah.
And honestly, it makes
King's X didn't mean that. Doing this instead.
It makes a good out for me when I lose games too, because then I'm just like, well, this is just part of the master.
It's part of the plan,
actually. So it's an easy out for me.
Well, it's easy too because all your guys are already dead. So
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the truth is that Tzeentch's every action is really all planned to kind of establish him as the strongest power, the preeminent power within the warp.
And that's the overall goal of all of them, right?
Yep.
They're all trying to vie to be win the war between the gods.
Correct. So he's not merely content to observe the fulfillment and disappointment brought on by the passage of time, he has like his own plans, and he may prop somebody up to seemingly be a huge success, only to have the carpet pulled out from them because they are not really the key factor in this whole thing.
It's something else.
Being successful allowed this other thing to occur, and that's really where the
It's almost like a Rube
is.
Goldberg machine. The way the things kind of rise and fall and change one thing impacts the other and makes it happen.
And it makes you wonder too, like how much of those strings he's pulling, because we all know that time travels strangely in the warp.
Yep.
Yeah, like how is he more of a master of that than the other gods? Are they aware of that, or?
Right.
And I'm sure he obviously knows all of those little tricks.
Yeah. And I mean, the other interesting thing about him is you just mentioned about time in the warp is he's such a master of time and a master of I think he's probably the most intelligent of the chaos gods. Like
he has to be
in my mind. And he has such a mastery of not only I guess the thing with him is he's always working the long game. And to a being that's immortal, the long game is the longest game there is.
Right.
And so, he is able to layer these plots within plots, which, are so long and expansive that in your lifetimes you will never see the fruition of what the actual objective of his followers or he himself is.
Right.
But he knows.
That's right. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the home of Tzeentch. When we talked about the home of Slaanesh and the home of Nurgle, like I found those very, very interesting because they felt almost very physical, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you would say, okay, for Slaanesh,
The different realms of Slaanesh.
you're passing through these layers, and each layer is a different thing. Tzeentch is so fluid and changing. His realm is changing as well, constantly, to the point where people who see it or envision it can ultimately be driven mad just by the sheer viewing of it.
Yeah, and one of the things I found that made total sense to me, and the way if I had to, craft what I think his realm would look like, is exactly what it is, which is all mazes and crystal structures and things like that. Because when you look through crystals, you're never looking straight.
Oh, that's a good point.
It's always changing things around. And if you have a maze built out of crystals, you're screwed.
Yeah,
right.
That's a really great point.
And so when I think about if I had a design where I think Tzeentch would live, that's exactly what I would think.
I think that makes sense.
And it makes sense, right?
Yeah, I imagine light bending in different ways,
right.
and that kind
crystals
of thing.
and prisms and a maze made out of that.
Sure. Well, I mean,
you're just lost forever.
At the center of this maze is literally his home, called the Impossible Fortress, because it's inconceivable how it's actually put together and how it changes. It's impossible
because
it's not.
It's always different.
And within the Impossible Fortress is actually something called the Hidden Library, which is where
all knowledge is stored,
right,
basically.
Right. I think the Black Library
I was gonna say,
wishes
right.
they had as much as stored there. Because as you were just talking about this crystalline labyrinth, I think you nailed your description perfectly.
Yeah.
Perfectly in that case.
And there's actually this kind of creature or force called the Guardian of the Maze, right? Which basically, good luck getting through that guy.
Right.
But it's hard to decide whether it's an actual creature or whether it's just your inability to focus on anything beyond the maze in front of you.
Yeah.
It's a force within itself.
Yeah.
And again, it changes, right? So you never know, right, what it is that's actually presenting itself, because it all twists upon itself.
Right.
But one of the other descriptions of the Guardian is that it's this giant mouth.
Okay.
That hovers, because there's 9 gates, of course.
So so a person trying to get to the Impossible Fortress has to pass through 9 gates.
9 gates.
9 being the number of Tzeentch.
Right.
Yep.
And this Guardian sometimes is depicted as a giant mouth, or orifice that is basically seen over the top of all the gates. And it kind of made me think of like the mouth of Sauron. Sauron. When the guy comes out and he's the guardian of the gates, kind of thing. It reminded me of that. But in this case, it's more like a cross between that and the eye, which was over everything.
Yeah.
But this is the mouth is over everything.
And I think the funny, again, speaking about 9, so at each gate, that mouth will speak to the person and ask the person who's seeking the knowledge of the hidden library, right?
Right.
One of the 999 riddles that are the riddles of Zarathox. Yeah, sure.
Zeros, yeah.
An African swallow or a European swallow?
You beat me to the point. You beat me to the punch. What is the cruising speed?
And as you get to each gate, if you can answer that riddle, you can pass through the next gate.
So basically, the people who do the trivia quizzes at the bars, they're practicing to go see the realm of Tzeentch.
Right.
Okay.
So then there's legend is told that only one person has ever been able to answer all 9 riddles and pass through the gates, and there's like who knows if this actually has happened or whatnot. But
this story is just ridiculous.
Stories say that the individual appeared to be a young girl who was accompanied by a small black dog. Which
Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah, obviously, that's
that's too much.
Wizard of Oz reference. I just thought that was fantastic.
Oh my gosh!
And it says factions of the Ordo Malleus wage vicious scholarly battles over the hidden significance of this tale, or if the tale actually happened, or was yet another metaphorical wisp of smoke from the Master of Lies.
It was all a dream after a tornado.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that was a fantastic piece that I had to add in here.
I wasn't going to mention it because it was so such
corny.
It's such an homage to the Wizard of Oz.
And perception of time is a little skewed.
Of course.
Yeah,
Why wouldn't
in
it?
his realm, right? As it always is in the warp.
Why wouldn't it be? Like a single footfall may take 100 years,
Yeah. Well, and the whole idea of being momentarily transfixed, you basically die of starvation.
Yep.
Or you see a vision in it of your future, and you're this glorious champion, but then at the end you see yourself as like this spawn, and then you come to reality, and hey, you are that spawn.
Right.
It's just twisted. Twisted.
So, as we talked about, the Impossible Fortress, which is deep inside the middle of Tzeentch's realm, or whatever is the middle,
right?
Somewhere within the maze is the Impossible Fortress, which is where the hidden library is, which is the infinite collection of tomes, scrolls, and parchments that contain every scrap of knowledge ever recorded in creation, stories that are written and unwritten, histories that are true and alternate,
yeah.
and accounts of futures that are potential, actual, and imagined. So, I mean, the thing is ginormous. It's so weighty with knowledge that the books are said to gain sentience themselves.
Right.
After and as you walk past them, they're talking to each other and talking to you.
It's almost like the idea of an AI that creates its own.
Oh, that's an interesting comparison, actually.
Yeah,
that's a
its
very
own
interesting
sentience. Yeah,
that's better than the Harry Potter comparison I was going to make.
Yeah, it would be. Yes,
but no, that actually is very, very clever, and it's kind of very Gibson-ish, actually.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because this concept comes up in different fantasy and sci-fi novels. There's a novel series about a wizard in Britain, and one of his basically his magic power is being able to see a little bit into the future.
Yeah.
And what he does, this whole idea of seeing futures that are possible and alternate, he sees several futures, and he can figure out which path to lead to which future.
Sure.
And so it's that whole idea of seeing futures that never happen. They're potential, actual, and imagined.
Right.
It's the same idea.
And the books will sit there and like argue with one another. They'll rewrite themselves and then rearrange themselves based on what they just
start arguing
rewrote.
again.
Yeah. And then there's like magical chains of warp fire that help protect the books and bind them in place, and horrors serve as librarians, kind of going around, shuffling the books around and reorganizing them and that kind of thing.
He just needs to invest in some big computers, Get with the times, Tzeentch.
Probably has. He doesn't need to. He just thinks about it. He knows exactly where that book is.
He still has books.
Even if
That's
it's
right.
moved.
That's right.
So, I mean, things are never as they seem with the Changer of Ways. Things are always different. The Crystal Maze, the Impossible Fortress, the Hidden Library may appear as above or may not look like that at all. I mean, nothing is ever the same. So you really cannot describe Tzeentch's realm.
So what the hell have we been doing for the last 20 minutes?
Trying.
Oh my God, I'm a spawn. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's just a fascinating. It takes some concepts from Cthulhu type mythos in the sense that you have non-Euclidean geometry, things that you can look at but can't comprehend.
Right.
Right.
And that's kind of, I think, probably why it appeals to me so
Everything's
much.
an Escher sketch.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, right. That's a good reference. Yeah.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the command structure of Tzeentch.
Okay.
Where it stands. I mean, we talked a little while ago about, well, Tzeentch himself sits at the top of whatever pyramid or non-Euclidean pyramid he's on. But
It changes. It changes where he sits.
But right below him are his most powerful.
Wait, let me guess. Greater demons?
No,
no.
No.
Lord of Change.
Lords of Change.
Lords of Change, which as with all
Which are greater demons?
with all demons we've talked. I guess they are. Great.
Yeah, they are.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. I was thinking
Yeah.
demon princes. Sorry, you're right. Greater.
See, it's the fourth time around, so I'm getting it.
It's been a long night.
He's-
So you have Lords of Change, which are, as with all demons, a portion of Tzeentch himself that is pulled off and then represented physically either in his realm or outside of his realm.
Given a bit more free will
Yep.
to be a bit more personalized and
So you're right. They are greater demons. Sorry. The Lords of Change are, sorcerers of immense power. They can be used in all different ways. Not only are they just sorcerers, they're also fantastic, warriors and generals of his armies.
Yep. Usually depicted as massive bird-like demons, avian.
Yeah.
Yep.
With staffs and big, nasty
We'll
blades.
talk about models,
Bathrobes.
in a bit, but yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's what you have. Amongst them, you also have Chaos Fateweaver, who is a two-headed version of a Lord of Change, and quite frankly, one of, I think, the coolest characters.
He's got some really cool lore.
Yeah. So then, as usual, you have demon princes, which are mortals that have ascended into the realm
Demonhood,
of demonhood and receive those gifts. You have heralds of Tzeentch below that, or maybe probably side by side. That heralds are kind of the precursors to invasions of these. They are the, I guess,
Lieutenants,
lower
kind of.
echelon officers.
I mean, they're literally, they're a herald. They're the ones who call,
Right.
they bring the call of Tzeentch, right?
Right. You also have the blue scribes, which are really cool. They're a couple of basically heralds in a
Right.
sense that are very powerful magically, and
Right.
their models are fantastically depicted, where they have books in front of them and that kind of thing. You have the changeling as well.
Well, and blue scribes, that's actually the favorite one that Colin likes the most.
Is it?
Yeah, because they're blue.
Oh.
well played.
I think until the nerf, he actually liked the changeling the most,
Yeah.
much to the chagrin of
Everybody else.
everybody else.
yeah.
Who thankfully got a little brought
Changeling
down.
is such an interesting character because it can take any shape
Right.
and imitate anything perfectly except Tzeentch himself.
Right.
He's not allowed to take that form, which is really, really interesting. So,
It's almost like they should call him a changeling.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, he was preeminently, I don't know if I'm using that word correctly. He was heavily featured in what I call my biggest battle area later. So, Flamers of Tzeentch, which are kind of their fast attack units, just
I hate 'em.
living fire. That,
Right.
Yeah.
Magical
they're
flames of
amazingly-
doom. Yep.
Screamers, which are their fast attack
Manta ray.
rays.
Yep.
Yeah. And then you have the pink horrors, which when divide become blue horrors, which divide and become
Brimstones.
brimstone horrors.
Yep.
Which I think are just awesome. Then you have kind of the principal lieutenants of Tzeentch, which really when we talk about like who kind of stands out in Tzeentch's forces, other than the previous mentioned Chaos Fateweaver,
Definitely Magnus, right?
Magnus the Red, right? I mean,
The Crimson King.
never has and I guess he's not even mortal, but never has something fallen so hard as Magnus the Red.
Never has something but seen so many competition tabletops
As
Magnus the
Reboot
Red.
Gilliman.
As Magnus the Red. Except Reboot.
The interesting thing about Magnus's fall is it's seriously like this depiction of a tragedy. Like
It really is,
thought.
yeah.
And what's the word where you think you're better than you are?
Delusions of Grandeur.
Yeah, that wasn't what I was going for. But,
Okay.
But where he has like this sense of I'm smarter than these demons I
Yep.
am dealing with, only to find out no,
That whole
you've been tricked this entire time.
that whole thing in Thousand Suns
is incredible.
is amazing.
and really
That story.
well detailed out.
Yeah. Yeah. And you really get that sense of tragedy
it's not ego. It's I'm trying to think of
Arrogance.
Arrogance.
Yeah, I guess that's it. The fact that he just thought he knew it all, only to realize that the galaxy's a lot bigger.
You know
than
nothing,
he
Jon
realized.
Snow.
Yeah,
pretty much. Yep.
You know nothing, Magnus the Red.
Magnus the Red.
There's also this thing called Gargutuloth.
Gargothaloth, yeah.
Gargotuloth?
Gargotuloth,
Yeah, that sounds
yeah.
right. That sounds about right. Again, talking about pronunciations.
Hey, a lot of these names are rather difficult.
Which is known as the Prince of a Thousand Faces.
I think sometimes they just write these just to laugh to see how people are going to pronounce them.
Yep.
Yeah, say that one.
Yeah,
It's just like
could be.
Lovecraft. I think Lovecraft was like that. So yeah, pronounce that thing. Why don't you?
Bokar the Wildsman. I got to imagine that's some fantasy.
Bokor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no, I could not find any details on some of these other than these names, which I thought was interesting. And then.
Yeah, Bokar's it's a fantasy thing.
Okay. And then Maleficos of the Burning Hands. So
Yep.
apparently important to Tzeentch, not important enough
Well,
that I
Themyscira
could
is
find any detail.
Themyscira the Star Dragon is definitely out of fantasy.
Okay. Oh, right. That's also one of them. Master Dark Eye. No clue.
I think you just got that out of a cartoon somewhere.
Yeah.
Master Dark Eye.
Old Dungeons and Dragons 1980s cartoon.
Yeah, yeah.
No. So let's talk a little bit about Worshippers Tzeentch. I mean, we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but this is kind of, you mentioned it, Adon. It's people who are seeking power, right? I mean, through any
It really goes hand in hand with
politicians,
sorcerers and politicians. Yeah.
rogues, and yeah.
Yep. And again, as we said, a lot of times they don't even realize they're serving
Right.
another power.
Exactly.
So I mean, when we talk about how does one worship these gods, I just find it fascinating because when you look at gods like Nurgle, I'm like, who would in their right mind give themselves over to this? It's a pretty far stretch for me to see I could see that how I would fall.
Basically,
under this god's
people on their
influence.
deathbeds, and there's lots of them.
But even there, I mean, you know what? I have been sick. I have been sick to the point at one point where I was like, if I were to die right now, I'd be okay with that. I have literally felt that sick before.
Yeah, I was a lot of Jägermeister that night.
No, that was not even close. So I mean,
No.
I even in that illness state, I couldn't say well, boy, I would really, I could really go for
Some disease and
a
maggots.
Flynn milkshake right now,
Yeah.
But I could see how thinking I'm doing something being manipulated, I could see
Right.
realistically how you could fall into
Yep.
the sway of this kind
Yep.
of God.
Well, and just like you can kind of see the idea of people who are lifelong warriors falling to corn, right?
Yeah.
Or people who are, and we talk about the obsessive nature of folks on the Slanesh end, but this one for people who are seeking power,
Yeah. Yeah.
or seeking knowledge, or seeking, that the whole chasing magic kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, if you
Yeah.
think, if I thought sorcery were a real thing,
Yeah.
I mean, that would be interesting. I mean, imagine what you could do is, a lot of times we look at superhero movies. You don't, Justin.
Well,
but
it
we
is.
do.
It is, dude. I can introduce you to my friend Vanessa. She runs the coven down the street.
Okay. Anyway, yeah. If she could throw a fireball down the street and I can see her do that, or charm somebody, or turn invisible
She's pretty charming.
right in front of me,
I can tell you.
Easy there, Tiger. Hey, Gal Gadot could be pretty charming.
There
too.
you go.
Oh no, here we go.
Anyway,
She's a sorcerer.
but I mean, that appeal of power could appeal to people very
yeah.
quick. So people
Absolutely.
who are pursuing that kind of power, psychers who understand that they're tapping into the warp would pursue that.
Well,
kind
even
of power.
even in our world, look at the things that people will do to get more power.
Right.
The things that they would allow themselves to, that they wouldn't necessarily otherwise consider.
the lies they would tell, the people they would manipulate, those
Right.
kinds of things.
Yeah.
Absolutely happens all the time.
Yep.
Scholars and other educated elites would also fall under this.
Yep.
The more, much like a Cthulhu thing, the more you learn, the less sane you become.
But think about like the Indiana Jones movies, right?
Yeah.
Like the guy that he was going against, the things he was willing to sacrifice to get more knowledge.
to
get more.
Belloc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same idea.
Now, the one drawback of these powerful sorcerers and that kind of thing is that Tzeentch tends to mutate his followers a bit.
Yep.
And so they tend to try to hide these mutations initially. I mean, I'm sure a lot of them consider them gifts.
Yep.
But Tzeentch followers are just not as in your face as, say, Khorne followers or
Right.
Nurgle followers. They're deceptive. They're secret. This is why I think Alpha Legion kind of feeds into it.
Yeah, a lot more underground.
Yep.
Plotting and scheming.
Yeah.
And, yep.
Behind the scenes manipulating things, right? They may not even need to be the person in power. They're behind that person manipulating what he is doing. Like kind of the perfect, like Wormtongue in Lord of the Rings, you know, that kind of thing. So,
or Dr. Smith in Lost in Space. She's totally Tzeentch.
so
Oh, the new one?
Yeah. New one.
Yeah.
So
That's a really good show.
those
really
who attain this great power in the service of Tzeentch are extremely powerful foes. They are very powerful psychers. They are, you know, skilled warriors, and they are intelligent about how they are approaching things. And usually, if you think you're defeating the bad guy, that's not really the bad guy. The bad guy is the guy, two guys behind him.
Yeah. Neener.
Right. Who will not even reveal himself then.
Well,
right?
and that's why it really plays into the whole I am Alfarius thing, right? That's why.
Yeah.
Would you stop
for
talking
sure.
about? I know you got the tattoo and everything, but come on, man. This is show for Tzeentch.
So,
But totally, it ties in perfectly.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, while Khorne has no sorcerers or psyker followers because he's kind of anti-psyker, Tzeentch assembles armies of warriors from all walks of life. So even people who are warriors may follow Tzeentch.
Sure,
whereas
yeah.
really only warriors follow Khorne. So anyone who inflicts or incurs great change, warriors can absolutely do that.
Yep.
But the vast majority of even his best soldiers will gravitate towards the use of magic.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's just his deal.
Yeah, for sure. Those who study arcane lore employ magic for sure. You know, like we said, we saw Magnus fall. If Magnus can fall,
Right.
what's a human?
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
nothing. So yeah, I think, you know, we've used this, but the Thousand Sons themselves are a perfect example of the manipulations of Tzeentch. You know, they have a flaw where they spawn out, you know?
Yep.
And Tzeentch basically says, yeah, we could fix that for you, you know? Oh, great. Well, you know, what am I going to have to pay to have that fixed? Well, nothing really, you know, trust us.
Trust
you
us.
know?
Yeah.
And next thing you know, everybody's spawning out, you know? So,
Sounds like the last mortgage I took out.
So, I mean, when you look at Tzeentch and kind of the historical foundations, I mean, throughout time, Tzeentch is there. I think, as we talked about, the fall of Magnus, the corruption of the Thousand Sons are the most in-your-face example. I think they're the example of, and for all we know, that's not done. It certainly doesn't feel like it's done,
Right.
or what Tzeentch's plan there is with them, but it is the most visible and in-your-face plan of Tzeentch and his fruit, and it has come to fruition as far as we know, but there's
Right.
probably more to it, obviously.
Who knows, right?
So when you talk about like the historical foundations of this chaos god, it's everywhere because the universe is constantly changing.
Right.
And so he's there wherever that is occurring.
Yep.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that, and I wasn't sure if I was going to mention it now or later, but this is kind of why, for me, this is the chaos god that makes the most sense to me, that I like the best, because if you were to talk to somebody who doesn't know anything about 40K, right, and you would say, describe chaos to me, what they would describe to you is Tzeentch. They would describe change.
Yeah, he's
entropy,
almost the embodiment of
entropy and change, and the whole idea of chaos theory.
Yeah.
right.
Of chaos in general. Of
Right.
well, the warp
the warp himself.
material
Right.
is chaos. Yeah.
Right.
And so
and is Tzeentchian. And
It's a good point.
And so, to me, the easiest connection for somebody who doesn't know anything about 40K, if you were to talk about, oh yeah, we're going to play, I have this chaos, you know, god, and he does X, Y, Z, and you describe Tzeentch, they're like, well, of course, that's chaos.
Right. That's
Right.
a good point.
And so he's infected even the non-gamer realm.
That's a very interesting point.
Yeah.
So let's talk about notable battles that Tzeentch has been involved in. Don, you want to start with yours?
I picked the battle that's actually described in the rulebook in the, I think it's the narrative section.
8th edition rulebook.
The 8th edition rulebook, yeah. It's called Warzone Stygius.
Okay.
And it's one of the reasons I like that one, first of all, because one of the Tzeentchian elements that's fighting in it is called the Knights of the Silver Tower. and I just thought that was cool. But also that whole battle is in the Stygian sector where Mordia is, and also where Luminaria is, which is a shrine world. And so it kind of brings in a couple of the armies that I really like to play on the Imperial side. And so when I was reading this section of the Warzone stuff, I was like, oh, Tzeentch, here's Tzeentch playing against the
What's
folks
kind
that I
of
really
the
like.
center of the conflict there?
Well, the center of the conflict is just trying when he's trying to. It's part of the 13th Black Crusade.
Oh, okay.
So they're basically trying to overtake that whole sector.
Okay.
And it's the Stygia sector has several different planet systems in it.
Okay.
If you think about it, it's called the section where they call these things called the crystal stars.
Okay.
So if you think about Tzeentch's crystal
Labyrinth.
maze,
Yeah.
right? It makes sense that it would be kind of a draw for Tzeentch and for his followers.
Right.
But yeah, it just so that the Warzone just talks about the forces of chaos and the forces of the Imperium that were there, and what the phases of it are and the attacks that you can set up. And I just like the fact that they have a whole Warzone dedicated to Tzeentch that overlapped with Imperial armies that I like to play. And
Nice.
so
Nice.
that's why it called out to me. So
Cool.
Because I have Mordians. That's my IG army, are Mordians.
Justin, you're next.
So you know me, I always got to pick the Eldari
Yep.
story, but this one was really cool because if it was focused on the Inari and Ahriman,
Okay.
and kind of got a bit more of the lore going for the Rubric Marines, of they actually can be brought back to fleshy existence.
Really?
Yeah. So,
I'm not familiar with this one.
so basically what happens is Ahriman has all these demonic spies seeded throughout the webway to kind of keep an eye on the reborn. He's aware of this whole, Ennead god being reborn.
Oh, right.
So he has all these spies set up, and basically, long story short, he sets an ambush for the Inari, ends up ambushing them and pulling the Triumvirate into out of the webway into like a pocket dimension.
That's so dumb because what he could have done was just gone to GW and bought the box set.
Yep, exactly.
Come on,
It's
Ahriman.
all there.
Come on, man. But he pulls them out, and he's trying to suck this life out of them that he can kind of put into his
into the rubrics.
into the rubrics, and basically ends up kind of succeeding in restoring dozens of rubric marines. They're resurrected, and they come back to fleshy existence, and then basically sees that hey, this is possible. So goes, maybe I should save these three. Goes back into the warp, and then a Wraith Knight slices the tunnels apart and separates them, and then they're able to escape. And then the avatar of Ennead sucks the souls back out. So it's kind of haha, here they are. They're fleshy. Neener. Sucks them back away. But
oh man, that's such a tease to Ahriman.
But
that's amazing. I was not familiar with this piece.
Yeah, and as they awake, they're just kind of looking around, what is going on here? And they see Ahriman, and it's just this whole layer of wow, okay, this is possible for them to actually be saved.
That is huge.
Yeah.
I did not realize that.
So
that
all
is
these
a
little
huge
snippets,
piece of lore.
all these little snippets of lore buried in there's little nuggets in the new books that are fun to read, and it's really starting to flesh out. And it
flesh out,
flesh out and change things that you've read about. I mean, you can only read so many times of these guys came down, blew the world up, and then Exterminatus. But now you're seeing wow, this is a legion that was turned to dust and now are actually possible.
Maybe.
Maybe.
It is clearly possible, but also
was it
denied, right?
But it leads you to believe too is what else is this Ennead possible?
That's
there's a lot this god can do.
Yeah. That is incredible.
Poor Ahriman. He just can't win. Poor guy.
Acme safes keep dropping out of the sky. I actually chose Warzone Fenris from the Wrath of Magnus, which was
such a cool story.
The series that came out, and to be honest, it launched the updated lore and the advancement of the lore.
timeline. Because it was the return of Magnus.
It was the return of Magnus.
Time for some revenge.
We got new models for Thousand Suns. When it kicked off, you got new models for Space Wolves. You got the Wolfen.
That's right. They were dropped around the same time.
Yeah, that was the first of the 2-part series.
No Leman Russ though yet.
The second,
right near the end of.
Yeah, there won't be.
No.
The second part of it is Wrath of Magnus, and this is Magnus's and the Thousand Suns assault on the home planet of the Space Wolves and the home system of the Space Wolves. And just like every hero from the Space Wolves is involved in this battle. Magnus himself, Armin, who those two actually don't get along so well, are both working.
No, they don't.
The Changeling is there, causing all these problems with the Dark Angels, basically threatening to, leading them on a chase through the rock itself, about to reveal the secrets of the Dark Angels to the Inquisition. You have like all these manipulations. And not only that, you have one of the coolest visuals I've ever seen. And I'm trying to figure out how we could turn this into like a play surface. But you have the kind of the culmination of this. You have these exalted sorcerers showing up, and each of them are on these like silver citadels that, these giant citadels that are like flying citadels that they kind of come in and surround the planet, forming this formation, which allows them to basically, suck the planet into the warp and all this stuff. And it's just a fantastic story.
You need to finish the spaceport first, though, before...
the spaceport is almost done.
Okay.
Right.
Just a few more Pringles cans.
Just a few more.
Yeah.
Spaceport's not even on the battle map.
But I hear that would be visually...
they're too big. They're too big to be, but it just, like, the pictures of them are just incredible.
Yeah.
It really exemplified the raw power of these sorcerers and just how strong they really were. And I absolutely enjoyed the hell out of this series. It's not for sale anymore. All the rules that came with it are all 7th edition,
Right.
obviously. So to a lot of people, it has no value anymore. So you can sometimes find it fairly cheap at garage sales.
But the used section of the store and stuff like that.
Just for some cool ideas.
And it has some great art in it, and the story is just fantastic. It is well worth picking up and reading if you can find it. So, yeah.
Muy bueno.
So, I think that's our first section of our coverage there. Let's take a break. I got to get a drink of water. Obviously, I'm starting to lose my voice. And we'll come right back. And
Are we going to change stuff up a little bit?
Yep, we are.
Okay.
Maybe. It was already changed.
Stop obsessing over that word change, man. It's
Don't make me hit you.
making me angry.
We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Big Nasty B from Life After the Cover Save, and I'm at a mall talking to strangers about Table War. Table War develops some of the most innovative products for the miniature wargaming and hobby industry.
And I develop pictures.
That's great. They develop things like the Fat Mat.
Who's Matt, and why is he so fat?
Well, first off, Mat is not a person. The Fat Mat is a tabletop gaming surface, and with over 40 different designs, Table War's Fat Mat has become a community standard.
I got a Surface Pro. It's like 10 inches. By the way, I'm meeting my friend Simbon. Do you know what that is?
No, but I do want to tell you about the Table War Tower case line.
Oh man, towers are so huge.
Well, it's not that kind of tower. It's the original modular, all-in-one display, storage, and transport system for all your tabletop miniatures.
Wow, you're really smart. What's your relationship status?
Well, it's complicated, but you know what isn't complicated?
Chili dogs.
This is true, but also the Macro Mat.
Oh geez, not that guy again.
The Macro Mat is a one-of-a-kind, innovative photography backdrop, perfect for collectibles, hobby miniatures, and small works of art. Its durability, portability, and functionality in one inexpensive product.
I wasn't paying attention to what you just said, but do you validate parking?
No, I do not. But if you want more information, head over to tablewar.com and check them out.
Table War!
All right, and we're back, and we're continuing to talk about Tzeentch.
Tzeentch, get it right.
Tzeentch. Right. I don't. We're talking about Tzeentch, obviously. We continue our discussion around that. Wanted to talk a little bit about how the deities' forces are represented on the table. In particular, I want to talk about demons and how they're represented on the table. Colin has painted a massive demon army. I keep threatening to buy it from him. He actually won't let it go at the moment.
Really?
Yeah, because it's kind of the only army he has right now that he can play that's not Custodes, and he's like,
Right.
if I'm going to a new place and I want to meet some friendly people,
You don't want to be
I
the
don't
guy
want-
bringing in the Custodes army.
yeah. So he has this army. I mean, I think, to be perfectly frank, I think eventually I'll probably end up buying it from him. So, and then I'm done with all my Tzeentch stuff.
Would you say
Yeah,
you're
you
playing
are.
the long game?
I'm playing
Yes.
the long game.
It's all about manipulation and
Pulling
change.
strings?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, like his wife's work, they just started layoffs right as he's trying to buy this house, and like they're in the final throes of it. He found out that his wife's not getting laid off, which is great, but I was just about to make this terrible joke about how, yes, I've forced his company to do layoffs so that he won't be able to buy the house. He needs extra money, and I'll buy it.
Oh, that's just
very Tzeentchian.
It is very Tzeentchian.
All right.
And Carl's actually behind the Adeptus Mechanicus army.
That's right. That's right. Oh, look. Would you like to buy a call?
Yeah.
My agents have recovered it.
Jeez.
So, the armies of Tzeentch obviously rely heavily on psychic abilities.
Yep.
Just about every unit that you are throwing out there has psychic powers. Whether it is, pink horrors that are using, basically Brotherhood of Psyker type stuff, whether it is the Lords of Change throwing things, blue scribes, whatever.
Screamers surfing the winds of magic towards you. Yep.
So a lot of the army, because of this, though, is predicated on things being near each other in order to support each other. And so unlike a lot of armies that are just like, well, I just shoot you off the table, or I can barrel through with toughness, this army has to be around and has to support itself. Not only that, it's not exactly really tough in the sense of like a Nurgle army. Its toughness isn't necessarily high, but it has like this deceptive toughness of invulnerable saves, which arguably I think are better than the toughness of a Nurgle army, especially when it comes to dealing with stuff like you throw with poison and that kind of thing. But it's really interesting because I think when you look at it on paper, unless you're really familiar with what you're looking at, you don't really realize just how durable these things are until they are out there.
Now, boy, are they durable.
Yeah.
Well, we all know how 4-ups can go. 4-ups can either be like, oh, it's a 50-50. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you're either rolling nut and butt 4s, 5s, and 6s, and it seems like that Tzeentch army is just unkillable or not so much. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
To play against.
But again, it changes from game to game.
It does.
But again, you can. A lot of what makes it strong is its access to psychic powers, not just smites, right? Like that's the easy thing, but its ability to obfuscate itself or to make things tougher than they normally are,
or make it easier to hit, or re-rolls,
harder to hit, or as well, or lowering its own invuln saves, or causing you to not be able to take invuln saves. All those types of manipulations. So I often think of it as kind of a cross between what Eldar used to be like in the 5th edition before they got, because Eldar players at that time, you had to really, every unit had to support the other
kind
unit.
Of work in coercion,
much more than you do now. Now you can really just throw so many scatter lasers and things into, you reap the benefits
there's not as much synergy.
But there's not as much synergy required. Eldar players used to be some of the best players in 40K, because if you brought Eldar to a tournament, it was like, whoa, this guy really must know what he's doing with these. So I often think of it as kind of this cross between what Eldar used to be and Tyranids, because Tyranids have this, synapse where it's a zone of control. Here, your quote unquote synapse is the range of your psychic abilities.
Right.
And since everything is so reliant on it, you need to keep the right things near the other things in order to get the best.
But thankfully, I think a lot of armies in 8th edition kind of have to do that.
It's getting much more so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely getting more.
But
so.
the range, especially with the Brotherhood of Sorcerers rules, the ranges can extend out quite a bit with.
Well, that's in Thousand Suns.
Thousand Suns,
yeah, in particular. So, in particular, I think you have Lords of Change, which are incredibly powerful units. Honestly, they're very powerful in Age of Sigmar as well. And
as they should be. I mean, they're greater demons.
And
they
to be honest, that's actually one of the very cool things about this army is it can be used in both game systems.
Yep.
And it always has been. All the demons army are.
Yep.
But now even more so because Age of Sigmar is using round bases. They're using the same bases.
Yep.
So you really do get to double dip with that army, which is fantastic.
Yep. The other thing that's really powerful in that army, I think, are the flamers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They're just so annoying and so difficult to deal with. in that army. I think
I kind of equate them to wraiths in Necron armies
Yeah.
because they're so fast that they get up there. Clearly, they attack differently and that kind
Right.
of thing. But they're that unit that I'm just like, I dread.
It's high damage output.
Yeah,
it's a really high target priority unit.
for sure.
Yeah.
For me, it's those demon princes.
Yep.
Kill the demon princes, kill the big things, and just ignore the little things. But
Yep. The demon princes are really nasty.
yep,
And again, they're typically sorcerers as well. So they're throwing,
lots of smites.
All right.
Okay. So let's talk about on the table kind of favorite units that you see in play. For me, probably my favorite model of all time, and just a unit that I love seeing on the table because I think it just adds so much character to the table, is Chaos Fate Weaver. Incredibly powerful sorcerer.
Yep.
Just really fun to see on the table. It's a very dynamic model. It's a very it is expensive to put out on the table. It becomes kind of a target priority when you can get to it. But Chaos is just, I think, when I think of playing a Tzeentch army, I am, and I'm gonna put Chaos on the table. Everything else is kind of in support of him,
Right.
right? Like
He's your
I
centerpiece,
build the
for sure.
army around him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think you nailed it. It's a centerpiece, right?
Right.
Like if I'm gonna make an army list, and I'm going, okay, Chaos Fate Weaver is gonna be there. Everything else is secondary.
Yeah.
Right to that, just because thematically that's how I feel, and it just makes for a very thematic army.
Yeah.
Adon, you.
Well, you wrote your notes before I wrote mine. My choice was going to be Chaos Fate Weaver, so I'm switching to Lord of Change.
You know what? Next time we do something like this, I will write the notes. I'll leave them mine blank, and I'll
Oh,
let you
okay.
guys choose first.
That's okay.
Because to be fair, normally I
Yeah, 'cause
write
you're the
the
one-
notes and
yeah.
then I populate my pieces.
But
of
no,
it.
I think that the Lord of Change, mainly because I watch how folks like Colin used it.
Yeah.
I just think it seems to be a really effective model for that army. I don't play a demon army, but in terms of watching the things being used on the army, used on the table, I think that it seems to be really good.
Yeah, the Lord of Change is incredibly powerful. I think one of the problems with both Chaos and that Lord of Change now, the new models too, though, is they're very big, so they're very difficult to really
Hide.
block any line
Yeah.
of sight on.
Yeah.
Oh, because the new Lord of Change kit can build Karos.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's all part of the
because I
same
kept
kit.
thinking the little Karos Fate Weaver model. I'm like, that guy is so tiny.
Oh,
The
no,
little-
the new kit.
I keep forgetting
you
that.
build either. of them,
Yeah,
and
that's
that
right.
kit is absolutely gorgeous.
Fantastic. Yeah, man, I can't wait to see the new keeper when they get to him. Her. It.
Well, speaking of that, what do you pick?
As far as playing, I've never played personally with a Tzeentch army, but I like.
You've played against it.
I've played against it, and I know if I was to do it, I would probably follow in Colin's footsteps and do like at least a couple big blobs of horrors, because they just kind of, for me, just that kind of epitomizes the army itself. Like
That does.
it's what I think of when I think of Tzeentch hordes, just big blobs of horrors blasting you, not ever going away because they're just unkillable and they're just blasting you the whole time.
Yep.
So, horrors.
All right. And then, although they're not technically
Demons.
demons, the Zangors, which I'll throw in here. We really should throw them in the chaos.
They look pretty
Space
demonic.
Marine.
Hooves.
Yeah, I mean they're beastmen, which
Large
was
talons.
eye-opening to me when you guys said that, because I was like, oh, I get it. Each beastman has like a different flavor. Got it. Like I'd never really engaged with beastmen before. I will tell you, they're cheap. They're super cheap. They're great to put out on the table.
Tons of damage output.
They can have tons of damage output. Usually they're just there soaking up wounds for me. But
And you can webway them in.
and you can webway them in. But not only that, those models too are very clever and very dynamic, and
They're beautiful.
You can make out of boxes, like you can make a bunch of them so they do not look the same.
That's cool.
Because the
Right.
heads come in like 3 pieces. So, but on the table, like my Thousand Suns list changed dramatically when I put those guys.
How,
in
you have a squad of
Demons,
20
we're
or
going
something,
demons.
or a couple squads
I
of 10?
usually do 2 squads of 10.
Should bump those things up.
Yeah,
And in
well,
your demon army, how do you use them?
I don't. Okay, fair enough.
All right.
Point made. All right, Adon, you're next.
Spawn.
Yep.
They are the epitome of change.
Yep.
And I don't know if you all remember, but several years ago, I don't know how long ago, I actually had bought all the models for an all Tzeentch army that was all obliterators and mutilators and spawn, because to me they epitomize what Tzeentch is about. And I think but also spawn on the table. They're super cheap. They're like 2 points for a 2 power level.
Okay.
For that
For a single one.
And they actually you have to deal with them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They get in your grill and you got to deal with them. So for a relatively
And they can be
inexpensive
surprisingly durable, actually.
Yeah, for an inexpensive investment, they can wreak some havoc. And I've always liked them. I've always had them in both my Chaos Space. I've always had them in my Chaos Space Marines armies.
Yeah.
But in terms of the demons and my sense of Tzeentch, I think it's the perfect epitome.
Well, I think that's a legit point. And there's so many powers. There's powers that turn things into spawns, right?
Yeah.
Which I've actually avoided using those powers specifically because I'm like, I don't have a spawn painted up.
Sure. And hobby-wise,
I got 2 assembled.
Hobby-wise, you can do whatever you want with
Whatever
those
you
things
want.
too. You know,
yeah.
and thankfully, because the standard models are awful.
No way.
And you can use
they're
almost
not
anything
bad.
from any other.
Nah,
game.
No, they're fine. Like I think they're actually pretty cool. They're pretty configurable.
I think they're a little dated, personally.
Yeah,
just my
probably
opinion.
a little bit, but
But there's so many, like, you could pick and choose models
could
from
stick
so
all
many bits-
over and just
bits
green
onto them.
stuff.
From any
and
different company too that
Yeah.
it just looks chaosy. Right?
Just watch the thing and get all kinds of cool
Yeah,
ideas.
that's
you know?
true.
Bada bing, bada boom.
I honestly don't think the models are that bad. I think they're A-okay. So, But look, I will say, if they were made now, they would be way
Yes.
better.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, yeah, without a doubt, I hear you there. But anyway. You know what? It just occurred to me. I forgot to mention. I don't think I mentioned last. I assembled the Mutalith Vortex Beast as well.
Oh, right.
And gave that to Colin.
the king of spawns.
Yeah.
That, let me tell you, that model was a pain in the ass to put together.
Really?
Yeah, it's one of those models where the body is very large and roundish, and you're putting it together in pieces. So like you're building,
It's all hollow on the inside and
you're
kind of
building the whole shell around the thing.
Right.
And then I couldn't get anything to line up as I got to the end part, and I'm like, what the heck, And I was getting frustrated. And then I'm like, well, I gotta, I'm gonna have to fill these gaps with something, and I'm gonna just try to force this thing closer together. And all of a sudden it goes click like this, and then I'm like, oh, it's all together.
should have dry fit.
So you're saying dry fitting was really
I did dry fit every single piece at dawn. No, you do, but then you almost have to physically force the thing together once you're at that final. I know it's so stupid. You have to force.
I hear you.
that
Some
thing
kits
together.
are funky like that.
It was so. But at first, I was so frustrated with it because I'm like, why does this not line up? This is ridiculous. This is a
And you know what? Tzeentch was laughing the entire time. Because he was manipulating you into thinking that it wasn't going to work, and then all of a sudden it did.
Everything changed.
Yeah. It all came together.
Yeah. So anyway, I forgot to mention that. Sorry to derail.
That's
us there.
funny. My last pick would be Flamers.
Yeah.
Flamers.
Just because I've played against them, and I just, like Adon said, I kill them first. They just have so much damage output.
Yeah.
You obviously can't charge them.
Yeah.
You just got to shoot them until they don't move and kill them. And the models are freaking phenomenal.
Yeah.
They're really cool.
They. You know what? The plastic models are a godsend too, compared to those
The old metals.
metal, and then the fine cast.
Although I love the old metal horrors. Love the old metal
the
horrors.
old metal horrors have
yeah.
a ton of character.
Yep.
So let's talk about from a Chaos Space Marine standpoint.
all
of
6
Tzeentch.
units.
Yeah. So
Carl knows a thing or two about this.
we did kind of limit it to one per person here because the range is fairly small. When you talk about the specified range, I mean, clearly the Chaos Space Marine basic kit has like Tzeentch pieces to it, and you can build like a Tzeentch champion type guy. You have the Chaos Lords that have like Tzeentch flavors that you can add to them, especially the Terminator Lord one.
Right.
But when you're talking about what we're really talking about is Thousand Suns when we talk about Tzeentch.
absolutely.
I mean, they are really the embodiment and most famous, I should say, of Tzeentch's followers. When much like the demons, when you're talking about tactics with Thousand Suns, what I've learned so far, which again I'm no expert, but I'm getting better, is you've got to pay attention to your ranges on the psychic abilities. They're so important. For smites, you got to position guys so you're hitting the targets that you want with smites. I mean, it's easy to avoid
Right.
those smites if you're putting throwaway units in front or a tank in front of something that you don't want hit by a smite. The ability to use different stratagems, I cannot tell you how important that is.
And the fact that it's a low model count army as
is
well,
a
so you
low-
have to use
Have
your
to be,
You are going to struggle with every unit you start to lose really starts to hurt.
Yep.
So adding Zangors to that army was a tremendous help for my Thousand Sons, because it just gave me something to lose, something I could put in front of something. It's cheap that I lose it. I'm okay with that. But it can also be surprisingly durable because they're making 5-up saves, or if I'm
and I
bumping
think-
them, they're 4-ups.
And
That's
I think
huge.
when we talk about, because we talk about in this section in our notes, we talk about calling out especially powerful units or especially important units.
yeah.
I actually think Zangors are the ones that I would pick, because they made such a critical change to this army and allowed it to be so much more durable
Yeah,
and
for sure.
flexible.
I mean, it seemed like as Death Guard with their Poxwalkers,
Yep,
you know,
yeah,
you-
absolutely.
Exactly right.
it's all great when you have these super elite
But
troops,
you need the chaff.
but you need
Yeah.
some chaff. You need something that can get
Yeah.
board control.
And
One-
I just think about it in terms of how frustrated Carl was getting sometimes running that army before the Zangars were
Yeah,
available,
yeah.
and how it
And
changed
the Predators.
after, and how it changed after.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was night and day.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
It was night and day. And one problem I will say with the army is you do not have kind of individual strong firepower that you're putting out. So like I can throw 4 las cannons on a Predator when we're playing power level, and I can do a lot of damage with those. But against a Tyrannid army, I am lacking a lot of bolter fire shooting that I'm going to be able to throw at them. The Rubrics have bolters that are -2 AP, which is fantastic.
But it's kind of overkill, right? When you're trying to kill chaff.
I need more just
Yeah.
bolter fire.
You just need weight of
I
fire.
don't have that
Yeah.
kind of weight of fire in the army list.
Well,
So,
you can still do cultists.
yep, absolutely. But again, cultists versus a bunch of gene stealers or even a bunch of
Right.
gaunts, it's just
Right.
not enough. But again, yeah, they do make a good, bubble wrap type unit too, which is primarily my Zangors are all kitted out with both like Zangar blades, so they
Right.
get multiple attacks. And
Right.
there's also a stratagem that lets them attack yet again. So
nice.
so it's a really really fun army to play, but it is, as you said, Justin, an elite army to play, and so it struggles a little bit. But when you win, it's like that much more satisfying.
Yeah.
because you had to be clever to pull your win
Right.
out.
Yeah, use your units wisely and don't go overboard on those elite units. Have a well-versed army. Have your fire base.
Yep.
Have your board control. Have your elite sorcerers blasting stuff. Your
And
demon
yes.
princes putting pressure up front.
Yep.
You have to be a good disciple of Tzeentch. You have to be able to manipulate your opponent into believing you're going to do one
Yes.
thing and then do something else.
To a degree, you do.
Yeah, right.
And putting sorcerers on discs gives them tremendous mobility.
Yeah.
But you also have to be careful because you don't want them being out front,
Isolated, right.
Otherwise, they're targeted.
Right.
So they're constantly being, behind something or
Yep.
or something is in
Kind
between
of
you
juking
and
in
them.
and out. Yep.
Yep.
Do you have any of the Zangor Enlightened?
Not yet, but see, that's
Those
what
are cool.
When I was talking about like building the army out and getting everything, like that's kind of the next step.
Yeah.
Are more Zangors, the Zangor Enlightened,
The Enlightened,
maybe some
yeah.
cultists.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're nasty, man. They're
Yeah.
really fast. A lot of firepower.
Yep. It's
Fun stuff.
I got to tell you, it is my favorite army right now, and it's my favorite army for a number of reasons. It's my favorite army because Colin has painted it. It's absolutely gorgeous. I
Right.
love looking at it on the table, but it's just I'm having so much fun playing it, and I'm just it plays to everything I really like about the game. It's forcing me to be a better player.
Sure.
So, which Chaos Space Marine units do you think best represent the deity?
Well, I would probably say the Rubric Marines. I mean, I think that's the staple of the army. It's the most thematic and
Iconic, yeah.
iconic. That's the
Yeah.
word I'm looking for.
Yep.
The trouble is, and one of the problems I ran into early with it is I would I want 2 10-man squads of Rubric Marines, and then I get access to the heavy weapon.
Right.
It's just so pricey.
Yeah.
It is just so pricey. And quite frankly, 5 Rubric Marines are pretty tough and pretty resilient, and especially when they're backed up by a sorcerer that's like, you know what? Now I'm going to lower, these guys are out front and in kind of trouble. I'm going to lower their invuln save, so now they're saving on a 4-up, not a 5-up.
Yeah.
They're
And you put that heavy weapon on your predator instead.
On top of that, it's like, oh, well, that's their invuln save.
Yeah.
The 4-up. But on top of that, it's like, oh, guess what? You're shooting them with bolters. Those bolters only cause 1 wound each. Well, they have all his dust, so they're saving on 2-ups against those instead of 3-ups.
Right.
So they become incredibly resilient
Oh,
when
I
you
know.
remember to use their rules.
It really helps.
Yeah. Plus,
really-
they're re-rolling ones when you have a sorcerer near them. So,
Yeah.
I mean, when you lay down bolter fire from those guys into Marines, and then we're talking Marine equivalent stuff, right? I mean, they fire their bolters, and you're like, okay, make all those saves at -2, and now Marines are saving on 5s, and you're like, oh, well, there you go. Took out a bunch of Marines,
Right.
It's hell.
It is fun.
It's
very fun.
Facing it is hell.
Adon, what about you?
I picked Ahriman. I just think he's so iconic also
my
from
God,
the
yeah.
lore and
And the books.
in the books and stuff. And I think that on the table, in terms of how he functions on the table, I think it's a great representation of what everything that deity is supposed to be about.
Yeah.
And I just like the model. I
Oh,
think
the
it's cool.
model
Yeah.
is probably one of the most beautiful models
Yeah.
in 40K right now.
Yeah.
Like, for me, it used to be the old Typhus. Like, the old Typhus was one of my favorite models of all time. Still is, like, iconic. But this new Ahriman, compared to the old one, like, there is just
I just
no
like the way
comparison.
he functions on the table. I just think he's a real force multiplier and really
Yep.
in terms of he can be a beat stick on his own, but he can also just totally buff everybody else.
Yep. Yeah, and with his staff, I mean, he's
Yeah.
hitting it strength 6 with that thing. I think it causes 3 wounds for every hit that goes through, and it's at like -1 or 2. I mean, he's pretty amazing. And you put him on a disc, and then he's zipping all over the place, buffing whatever he needs to buff at 24 inches in a lot of cases. He's incredibly, he's awesome.
I love how they're sticking to with the if it ain't broke, don't fix it, really. Because if you look at that new model and the new, let's say Fabius, they haven't redone Fabius, have they? Karn is what I'm thinking of. The ones they have redone, they've stayed so true to the 2nd edition models.
Absolutely,
Where it's updated and it's refreshed, but you instantly know who that is.
Exactly.
They just took that design.
He's
and,
a personality.
He's big, like he's bigger
Yeah.
than, and just his pose. I mean, he's holding that thing, and his one hand is out.
Yep.
Like,
it's got magic flowing
it's
around him.
freaking
Yeah,
incredible. And
amazing.
And again, I mean, I gotta thank Colin because he knocked it out of the park with that model for me. It just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Blows my mind. Like my Thousand Suns army, I almost can't take without him. Like
Right.
I just, like you said, he's iconic.
Yeah.
He's,
1,000 Suns, you got to have Ahriman.
and I build my list around him.
Yep.
On that same basic note, I had to go for the hobbyist in me couldn't not pick the new sorcerer kit.
The Exalted Sorcerers.
The
yeah,
new,
those are the Exalted.
The new exalted sorcerers.
Incredible kit.
All the new sorcerer sculpts. I mean, they just scream Tzeentch.
Yeah.
They have the magical powers flowing around them. They have the whole kind of Egyptian, which we didn't really touch on. Tzeentch, the Thousand Suns definitely have a
Yeah.
strong
Yeah, yeah.
Egyptian kind of
that's
theme to
true.
them.
Yeah.
But
I feel like they've downplayed that a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. But there's
maybe downplayed it with the Thousand Suns and then upped it with the Necrons.
Yeah.
yeah, maybe a little
They
bit.
just need those chin, which I think some of the models actually do have the chin
Yeah.
deals. But phenomenal models, and obviously
I love the
sorcerers.
floating book in front of one of them, and everything just that some of them are
Avian heads.
yeah, they're like warped, right? I mean,
Yeah.
One guy's flying up above the ground with bird feet. I mean, they're
But let me tell you, those Exalted Sorcerers are no joke on the table either. They
Right.
are powerful
Right.
units.
As
And
they
I
should
think
be, right?
They have like
Yeah.
4 or 5 wounds apiece. I mean, they are.
Yeah.
they
'Cause
are
they're not
tough.
just sorcerers. They're exalted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're the ones that own those like silver tower
Yeah.
fortresses that
Yeah.
are floating around. So
Suck up the planet.
they are amazingly powerful. Although Armin's still better. plus one all psychic tests with his staff. He's eking into that smite on an 11 with that staff. When you roll a 10, you're like, oh,
yeah.
he's pretty epic.
Apparently,
but yeah, I
he
think
doesn't have the ability to stop irresistible force, miscasts and stuff like that. It's just
No,
it's above his ability.
I-
Us true races, we have helms
I
that
cannot tell you how many times like I roll perils with him, and I'm like, I swear to God, there's got to be a rule. And then I like open the book and I'm flipping.
it's funny
through
as you were talking about that. I was flipping through the book just to be like, there's got to be something that
Nope.
allows him to on a 4-up, a 5-up, a 6-up. Ignore
it. Nope. He just eats it. And the crazy thing is, like with him too, I'm throwing a lot of dice because he's casting 3 around. I'm always casting with him.
Yep. That's funny.
You just go for it. But he also can block like 3 around, and he's amazing. 2 or 3 around. I'd have to go look, but yeah, great. But I think you're right on those exalted. They're powerful units. They are expensive to put on the table, but they're expensive for a reason because they kick ass. So,
boom.
Speaking of the models in particular, from the line, both Forge World models, from Demons, from Chaos Space Marines, we've gone through and picked kind of what are our favorite models. Much like seeing on the table, I chose Rubric Marines as my first model. They're so iconic. The all is dust rule is incredibly cool in them, but I love the idea of these automatons like controlled by a sorcerer with them.
Space Marine mummies.
It is just it speaks to me on so many levels, and they're beautiful models. The kits are amazing, and a pain to paint. Every time like Colin and I see somebody, they're like, I'm going in, and they buy like all these 1,000 Suns. We look at each other, we're like, I bet those are gonna be on eBay pretty soon.
The thing is, though, is like if you can just power through
if you can power through it,
you're not painting 30 of these things.
No,
I mean maybe you are.
And with a gold Sharpie, you're good.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
I agree. No, I agree.
Yep.
Well played.
Thank you very much. Thank
Now,
you.
what I wouldn't recommend, I think Duncan had a video where he primed them gold first, and then
other people do that, but I think you're missing a lot of the shading that you can do if you go that route.
I think any way you paint them, it's just going to take time.
Yeah.
And put on your favorite episode of the Independent Characters and just get it done.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hey, nicely called.
Boom.
Or watch an entire season of something. You might get one done.
Don't watch anything that's going to distract you.
That's right.
Audio.
Good point, that I
Good
cannot
point.
Audio
watch.
and
Listen to the entire Horus Heresy as Colin has done.
yes.
Okay, but great point. Adon, let's go with you.
Zangors.
Yeah, nailed it.
The new models are just amazing. When they came out, I was like, ooh, how could I use those? No.
So they came out first in the new Quest game. And I
Yeah,
will
right.
agree with you in that. Well, them and the super cool sorcerer that had like he was like all Pan's Labyrinth style, where it's like
yes.
It'd be cool to use him from that game as an exalted sorcerer.
oh, you totally could.
I have him for a sorcerer for my Age of Sigmar.
Do you? Yeah.
Yeah. But those sculpts, I mean, I'll piggyback actually to speed through this a little bit. I'll piggyback off both you guys. So I agree with you on the rubrics. Although my note here says I would never want to paint them after watching the pain and suffering that Colin went through.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure when the Emperor's Children get redone, I'll be.
Could you imagine?
I can.
You imagine?
I
How
can.
ornate those things are.
They're going to be phenomenal, and I'm going to suffer through painting all 18 of them
Yep.
because I'll probably have 2 squads. No. 18 because I'll probably have 3 units of 6.
Yeah.
And then the Zangors. I mean, those models just blew me away.
I didn't like them at first, but as soon as I started assembling them, I was like, oh, these are incredible.
Oh, they're phenomenal. I mean,
Because I never really looked like that closely at them, and then now they're some.
And
of my
you can put them
favorites.
on discs.
Yes, you can. Some.
It's just one of those kits that really, it's like Games Workshop showing off, going, yeah, we're pretty much the best at making plastics. You know, what are you going to do? What you going to do about it?
Don, let's do your last one.
Well, Justin kind of stole it from the other section. But
Oh, no.
The exalted sorcerers on discs.
Yeah.
The exalted sorcerer models.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with us agreeing once in a while.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah. There's also and then I think last for me is the Osiris Pattern Dreadnought from Forge World.
I deleted it. I had to delete that off my line because I saw you'd already put it on there.
So good.
Yes.
So good.
And
I wasn't
Colin-
really a fan of that model until I saw Colin paint it.
Colin just finished mine, and it is incredible.
It's
I
amazing.
can't wait. And you know what? At first, like I didn't like the pose he had put in. Like I saw the pose, and I'm like, oh. And I'm like, it's my own fault because I was supposed to assemble it, and Colin assembled it for me. And now that I saw it like done, and it looks like he's just walking, like he's not like running, which I don't like.
It works for
He looks
T-Sons.
so good.
Yeah.
It looks so like Colin nailed it. He
Yeah.
was on it. It's better than what I would have done. So super. That is I can't wait to put that on the table and just start playing with that.
So
Even if I-
he changed your mind on it. Yeah.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Are we done yet?
No. We're done. We're just getting started.
I'm ready for a change.
Okay.
Let's go.
Black Library books featuring Tzeentch.
Yep.
I'm sure there's more. Again, we don't go into all the smaller kind of short things.
And this is where the community jumps in afterwards. It's really great to see all the things people uncover.
Absolutely. But the Armin series by John French.
Yep, French.
In fact, after doing this episode, I want to read it again because it is fantastic. He really, what was interesting is Armin was one of the first, I don't want to say the first books we reviewed, but it was the first book we reviewed from John. And I don't remember if it was his first book that he wrote. I don't think so. But Jeff and I reviewed it, and Jeff was very, very critical of it. I was very much like, "Ooh, I like when Armin blew guys' heads up," And and Jeff is like way smarter than me when it comes
very
to
insightful.
Yeah, he's very insightful when it comes to books and seeing here's the underlying themes and he was kind of critical of the book. And this is how I met John French. I went out to Warhammer World for the first time, and I was meeting with all the Forge World guys for dinner before we go to Salute, and John French is there. And I get introduced to him by Ed, and he's like, "Oh, this is John." John and I are pretty good friends at this point. Now we are, but back then it's like my first time I met him, and I'm like, "Oh, we reviewed your book, Armin. I was a big fan." He's all, "Yeah, I know. I listened to the review." And I'm like, "Well, listen, I really like the book."
Yeah, it wasn't all bad.
I like
that guy Jeff. I don't know about him.
Half bad.
But I will
I'll
say,
kick him off the show.
John's response was, "You know what though? I listened to what Jeff had to say, and he's right in some things, and I've made some changes on what I'm doing in the sequel because of kind of some of his observations." And so I think it was, and John and I talked the whole night and stuff, but I remember him saying that to this day because I was like, "Oh boy."
Yeah.
Here we go. And he was like, "No, Jeff was right in a couple parts, and then
that's cool.
And he made a couple counterpoints, but he underlying, he was like, "Yeah, there's a couple things he's right about. I'm gonna change a few things here to make it a little
it's like we always talk about with even rules development. These brilliant people write these rules the best of their ability, but until it gets read by or played by thousands of people, there's going to be little things that people notice, and it's just part of the deal. But
there is a massive Warzone Fenris series that you can download. There are smaller books and that kind of thing, but it's so prolific. You should check it out because it involves a lot of Thousand Suns and Tzeentch stuff. And Architect of Fate, which is one of Space Marine battle books that also John wrote about, is fantastic as well. So
and I think
several short stories in there about Tzeentch stuff.
And I think that two other iconic landmark books would be Thousand Suns,
of course,
and Prospero Burns,
of course. How could I not include these on
those?
Those
are really great bookend. And it's the different perspectives that they show in those two books.
Clearly Horus Heresy books.
Yeah.
So, but I almost feel like you could read those separate of the rest of the heresy.
Yeah.
Those two books are an all-encompassing story in themselves.
Right. And I think that even if you never played 30K, but you play 40K and you know about Tzeentch.
Yeah.
And you know about the Thousand Suns army.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the legions that never changed from being a legion. Right?
That's true.
And so when you read that book,
that's true.
Suns,
there are no spinoffs of the Thousand Suns.
So if you read that book, it really gives you tons of insight into, because Armin's in the book and Magnus is in the book. There are spinoffs. There are war bands.
Yeah. And there's even Black Legion sorcerers that are X-Thousands.
Right.
Clearly.
But I just think that it's such a I don't know, landmark part of the lore.
Yeah.
And that even if you're a 40K player and you don't know anything about the rest of the Horus Heresy, those two books you could pull out of the series.
Actually, I
really
totally agree with you.
Yeah,
totally agree with you there. Okay, supporting supplements for featuring Tzeentch. Not a ton out there other than the codexes, but these other supplements are really the Wrath of Magnus, Curse of the Wolf, and the ones I mentioned before, the Warzone Fenris. They're out of print right now, but if you can find them, they are, and get them cheap, definitely worth reading through. Really interesting stories.
And in the Warzone section, as I said before, in the current 8th edition rulebook, that whole Warzone Stygius is about a Tzeentch incursion. I mean, Magnus is in it. The McCocken or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
He's in there.
Let's call him McCocken from here on out.
He's in that.
McCocken.
Whoa.
Hey, he said it, not me.
I know. It's
live it. It's just
embrace it.
They're all in that.
Maybe not.
They're all in that war zone. They're all in that battle. So, and that's everybody has. If you play 40K and you have the main rule book, you have that.
Only Cockin.
I'm losing it. Sorry. That's a really
I'm just gonna keep going. That's fine.
No, please. That's a
Yeah.
really funny name, though. That is a good one.
That's how these things happen.
All right.
Naturally.
And then, Forge World supporting models, like, surprisingly, there's not a lot of demon models supporting it, but with the introduction of Horus Heresy stuff, there are quite a few models. So you have Horus Heresy Book 7 Inferno, which talks a ton about Thousand Suns and that kind of thing. I mean, that's where all the rules are for them. Greater Lord of Change model, that's the
Beautiful
guy. And beautiful model.
McCocken.
Although I will say, like, the wings are looking a little dated to me at this point. I'm
just remembering from when it hit, everyone was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at that time, and still, I mean, there's
Still a sweet sculpt.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and you know what? Just get some wings from a different
maybe
Bones
something,
model or something
because,
to-
like, its staff and like the power that it's holding in its hand is really awesome.
Yep.
The gigantic chaos spawn.
Oh yeah.
which-
Oh yeah.
Oh, maybe I should get chaos spawn.
Yeah.
Well, they have
there
the
40K
big
rules
spawn,
for
and then they have the spine beast too.
Yeah.
Are there 40K rules for the giant chaos
I
spawn?
believe
There might
so. In Imperial Armor, I think there is.
I think
Oh,
you're
the
right.
Imperial Armor Index.
Or you just get it and use it as a mutalith.
Yeah.
If there isn't, there probably is rules.
I'll bet you there is. I need to do a double check that. Speaking of Imperial Armor Index, Forces of Chaos, that's the book that'll support it. Then, we go into the
All kinds
litany of Thousand Suns stuff, which I'm going to just rattle off real quick here. Mark IV, torso, shoulder pads, heads. You got Cult Blade, the Kinatai Occult Blade Cabal upgrade set. You got Achaean pattern shoulder pads. You got Thousand Suns Rhino doors for 30K and 40K. So you have the old circular ones and the square ones. Land Raider doors for 40K. You have, which also work for 30K. You have the Contemptor Dreadnought for the Thousand Suns, which is really cool looking. You have Magistus Amon, who people don't like the paint job on him, like his beard and stuff. He does look very Egyptian looking. I personally think it's a fantastic
It just
model.
it fits that kind of.
I see why some people don't like it. Fair enough, but I personally like it. The Osiris pattern Contemptor Dreadnought, which I think is, Jesus, dude. Did you see what Colin did to the blade on that thing?
I know.
Yeah.
I was picking his brain. I'm like, dude, that green. He's like, well, you will like it. The color's like a dark Eldar Drukari named like Sibirit green
no
or
tape,
something.
just angles and everything on it. Is how he did
the
it.
Sekhmet Terminators too.
It just makes me sick. Yeah. Segment Terminators, the Thousand Suns Legion Praetor, which is an incredible model. In fact, I may pick one of those up just to use as something else.
A champion
Chaos
or
Lord or something.
Yep.
Thousand Suns Legion transfer kits, which I'm using on all my stuff, and they are
Yeah.
those
They look
Forge
really good.
transfer kits
Really
are
good.
unbeatable. And of course, Magnus the Red, but this is the 30K.
The 30K version, when he was still a human or a
You know,
Primarch.
none of us mentioned Magnus the Red as one of our top models, and I personally really like him. I know people don't like the nipple horns, but
He's cool.
No, I like
think
him.
he's
One of
cool.
the things I like about him is just all the different ways you can build him.
yeah.
The-
I've seen a lot of people do
versatility-
variations
The
on him.
versatility of that model and the different elements that come with him.
Yeah.
I mean, if you decide not to put the armor on him, still the model itself is very well
Defined.
modeled.
Yeah. I mean, he clearly doesn't skip days at the gym.
Nope.
I was gonna say that's my one kind of gripe about him is like, yeah, he's a Primarch and demon, but he's just so yoked. Like I imagine him in my head as being like a little thinner, like still imposing and muscular, but not like.
Whatever. You're just jealous.
What way's the beach?
He doesn't skip leg day,
He does not skip leg day,
and his
No.
legs bend backwards.
and his legs bend. But I mean, he's a fantastic model.
There are no carbs in his diet, though.
yeah.
And whatever nipple horns, who cares? Cut them off.
Well, you have to wear those, otherwise Space Wolves will attack you while you're in your hot tub.
Right.
So, yeah, never thought about that.
I
Did you?
never did.
No, you
All
never
right,
did.
well, you think about that while we take a short break, and we'll be right back to close out the show.
But will do.
All right, so we're back to wrap up the show. Thanks for listening to episode 171, Chaos Resurgent Tzeentch. You've got a few final thoughts here. I think for me, I just have to say that
That you're a fanboy of Tzeentch.
Actually, here's the first thing I'll say. If you're a parent you're probably going to want to end the show, and you have a kid around, you're probably going to want to end the show before we say our Astronomicon bit. I'm just going to leave it at that. So just be warned.
Or don't. I don't know.
Justin has come up with a good one. All right. Anyway.
Playing it up too much.
Yeah, maybe I am.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, whatever.
Yep.
Okay. Tzeentch is my favorite Chaos Army at this time. I was talking about it before. I've moved over from Nurgle, which was my previous favorite, because not only does the concept of sorcery really appeal to me as a player, and a lore aficionado, if I do say myself, but the bright color schemes, the dynamic nature of the army really appealed to me on a visual level, which is really interesting to me because when I first got into 40K and I didn't understand a lot of the lore, and I heard, demons are going to have an army. Like at the time, I didn't really know much, but it was 4th edition, 5th edition, where Demon Army first came out. I saw all the various demons of the various gods and that kind of thing, and I was like, that isn't what I think of when I think of demons. I think of Khorne.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's like the archetypal,
horns, hooves,
devils and
beady eyes
type thing. And so when I saw like the Thousand Suns demons, I was like, I'm not so sure I'm onto this. But as I've found with a lot of things in 40K, things tend to grow on me over time. And as I learn more about
once you learn about
the lore and I understand it, and then I'm like, that's actually kind of interesting because that's why they look like such and such, or so over time, I have to tell you, like, these have become some of my favorite kits, and I think some very interesting. When you see it as an army on the table, it is beautiful and colorful.
Yep.
And fun to see and fun to play.
And different looking.
Different.
So different than anything else, really.
Yeah. So that's my final kind of word on it, Adon.
Yeah, to me, and I said this earlier, but to me, this is kind of what chaos is all about. When I think of the concept of chaos, it's about change. It's about ever-changing colors, ever-changing structures.
Mutating, shifting.
Right. Yeah. And it's about mutations, and this is what chaos is. The whole idea of chaos theory and entropy and everything going to disassemble.
And not just like the oogie boogie spiky skulls and chains, right?
Yeah. And so that's, to me, this is all what chaos is all about. This is what it, in my mind, when I before I ever started playing this game, if somebody were to say to me, I'm playing the forces of chaos, that's what I would think it would be.
Gotcha.
I could picture that in my head.
Yeah.
Also, it connects really closely to Alpha Legion, which I really like because
the secrecy and the manipulation.
Yeah, and even the way people paint Alpha Legion, where they use the color shift paint and stuff like that. No matter if you look at a different angle, it changes. So there's a whole concept of you never know what you're looking at. Mm-hmm. Every Alpha Legionary you talk to, what's your name? Because you never know who the real Alpha is. Right. Anyway.
And the color shift paints too. That's a good point. Like once those really start being more mainstream, to see what people do with those, with their Tzeentch stuff.
Highlight those, like that's a
you
tough.
Don't. You paint them on and you wash them.
Colin and I talked a lot about those color shifts paints, and one of the things I think I don't like about them, this is what I told Colin. Like I've only seen one case where I thought it was done really well, and even there, it's like, but the best like mattes and all that look, I think, way better.
Yeah,
blends and those kinds of things, because when you're blending colors yourself with an airbrush or whatever, you're controlling what the person sees when they look at the model.
Right.
And with the color shift paints, you have no control over what they're going to see and from what angle.
Well, they have different colors of them that you can still mix together.
But still, I mean, depending on the angle, like you can't hide shadows. You can't.
It's chaotic.
It's just very different.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway.
Interesting.
My take on it. Justin?
Basically what you guys have said. I mean, Tzeentch is really... I personally, I dig the fact that they're so vibrant and colorful, and like if done properly, like I mean, I feel like this is kind of like the Colin episode. We keep bringing him up, but rightfully so.
Well, I mean, look at what he's done.
His armies are phenomenal looking, and they just they catch your eye. And
his Tzeentch army is just insanely colorful.
Yeah, which is hard to do with like an orc army or an IG army for the most part, right? They're more drab colors, more silvers, metallics. Whereas this army is like, it grabs your attention and says, "Hey, look at me."
Yeah. I kind of feel that way about Howling Griffins, about like Imperial Fists for Space Marine.
Any of the vibrant color schemes,
bright
right?
color schemes, But this is not just that single color,
right?
Or even two. This is a multitude of colors,
Yeah.
And it doesn't. I just think it lends itself very well to that. It's just fascinating. I
Yep.
agree with you 100%.
And the lore is super rich.
Yep.
Like most 40K stuff. It has a lot going for it, and it's good on the tabletop.
Yeah,
It's got a lot of power.
for sure.
So it's got all those elements. Makes it cool.
All right. Well, as usual, leave us reviews on iTunes if you like what you're hearing. We really appreciate that. We always appreciate, obviously, 5 stars. But if you don't think we deserve that, I think you should review us fairly. If you want to give us feedback, you can give us feedback through our Facebook group, which is, I guess it just hit 3,000 members. I wasn't even paying attention.
Me neither.
A member told us that.
Yeah.
And took me by surprise. But the reality is, if it had 50 members of the quality of member that we have in there,
Sure.
I would be super happy.
Yeah.
And we have 3,000 members that are incredibly supportive and friendly. And Don, you and Loopy are doing an amazing job moderating it. I know Aaron's a moderator, but he doesn't count because he doesn't do anything on it. And I'm obviously an awesome moderator as well.
Yes, you are. You're an awesome moderator.
I can't toot my own horn like that.
You're an awesome administrator.
Things are going very well with that group, and to everybody who's on it, I really appreciate the tone and the attitudes of everybody and the helpfulness of everybody. It's been very it's been a fantastic experience. I'm really glad we opened that group. I was hesitant to do so for a long time, but I'm glad we did.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have a Facebook page. As you know, we have that Facebook group, which are 2 entirely separate things, but go ahead and like both of them. We really do appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right.
And post pictures of your models.
Oh,
and
dude, yeah. And
get some feedback. Talk about bat reps.
if you
whatever
haven't
want.
already, those people in the UK should be receiving their shirts any day now.
Any day.
Because they got to our distributor, and I want to very much thank. He goes by Cav Ender, his Facebook name. I want to very much thank him for helping us out. He made it affordable for us to do because we were able to basically ship to an APO address.
Super cool.
And he was able to get them all out to me very reasonably. So, we took a bit of a wash on some of them, but it's fine. Like, we got them into people's hands, so they should be arriving any day now. If you haven't got yours, we'd love to see pictures of you wearing them.
Yep.
On the Facebook group as well.
Well, especially, actually, there's these 2 guys. Did you hear about these 2 guys in the UK who are locking themselves in a haunted imperial Napoleonic fortress to raise money for cancer?
No.
It'd be great. Yeah. Matt,
really cool.
Matt and Charlie, yeah. It would be great if they actually were wearing IC shirts when they lock themselves in the fortress.
That would be cool.
It's supposed to be in a haunted Napoleonic fortress.
Interesting. Who's it
Radical.
haunted by? Napoleon,
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
Little man himself.
Pretty
It's called Haunted Fort. That they're
Interesting.
They're trying to raise money for cancer.
Well, anyway, Cavender, thank you so much for your help. We really do appreciate it, man. And thank you so much. You made it possible for those people in the UK to get them. As far as Australia people go, I know it hasn't happened yet. I'm still looking into it. Work has just been incredibly busy. We've actually had a very hard time scheduling this recording session because all of us have been insanely hectic. I am determined to get them out there to you somehow. It will happen. I just don't know when. And then I'll probably do a reorder of a few sizes of shirts so that they're available for the Australian folks. So anyway, so that's it from us. Parents, you can end now. Otherwise, this is Carl.
This is Adon.
And this is Justin.
And we're coming to you from the Astronomicon, where you can never tell what the final outcome is going to be.
And, oh wait, hold on. I need to change this.
Oh, God. And Tzeentch is change I could put my cock in.
I can't believe we did
No?
that.
I can't believe I'm letting you do that.
I couldn't believe let me do it either, but it happened, so
All right.
they're warned.
Well, there you go. All right. We'll see you next time. This episode of The Independent Characters is protected by the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find information on the front page at theindependentcharacters.com.